My lady, Miss Li's carriage has already entered Yangning Gate. Seek lifted the curtain and came in, unable to hide the delight in her voice. The comb in my hand froze against my daughter's hair. In the bronze mirror, I saw my eyes turn cold in an instant. Memories of my previous life surged back like a tide. Pei Jingji had ended my life with a cup of poisoned wine. Of my 2 children, one had been pushed into the lotus pond and drowned alive. The other had been sold into the Imperial Music Bureau. Those scenes cut across my heart like knives. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, only icy calm remained. Mother, you're hurting me, my daughter, Pei Nian murmured softly. I immediately loosened my grip and stroked her soft hair with my fingertips. Mother was careless. Sikhs, go bring the eldest young master and eldest young lady back from their lessons. Tell them their mother wants to see them. Zeke stared at me in surprise. Madam, it's only just past noon. The young master and young lady haven't finished their lessons yet. Just do as I say. I turned and looked at her. Zeke shuddered under that glance and hurriedly withdrew. I continued doing Nian's hair, arranging it into 2 little buns and fastening a tiny pearl flower between them. The little girl reflected in the bronze mirror had delicate brows and eyes and looked very much like Pei Jingji. Nianer, would you like to go out with Mother in a little while? I asked gently. Yes, where are we going, Mother? Pei Nian lifted her small face, her eyes shining. To see your maternal grandmother, she misses you. Pei Nian clapped her hands. Nianer misses grandmother too. I summoned the wet nurse and told her to take Nian to change her clothes and to bring 2 thick cloaks. The nurse did not understand, but seeing my expression, she did not dare ask questions. I rose and went to the writing desk. The wolf hairbrush touched the fine calligraphy paper. I wrote the words divorce agreement without the slightest tremor in my wrist. 7 years ago, as the legitimate daughter of Duke Anguo, I had married Pei Jingji beneath my station. At the time he was only a 5th-rank assistant commander. I had begged my father to allow the marriage and spent half my dowry smoothing his path, securing connections for him and buying war horses and armor. He had promised that if the day ever came when he was made a marquis and appointed chancellor, he would never betray me. Later, he truly was made a marquis. We had been married for 7 years and I had borne him a son and a daughter. I had thought that, even if our marriage was not passionate, at least we treated each other with courtesy and respect. Until today, when Liu Ruyan returned to the capital. In my previous life, it had happened on this same day. Pei Jingji personally went out to the Tenli pavilion to welcome her. The next day he accused me of disrespecting my elders, jealousy and lack of virtue, then confined me to Qingqiu courtyard. Later, when Liu Ruyan became pregnant, he feared I would stand in her way and ended my life with a cup of poisoned wine. My Zhaoer was pushed into the lotus pond by Liu Ruyan and drowned alive. My Nianer was sold into the Imperial Music Bureau and died there at only 7 years old. Today I would begin settling those blood debts. When I finished writing, I folded the divorce agreement, placed it in an envelope, and weighed it down beneath the candlestand. Then I opened a compartment in my dressing case and took out a small jade token. My father had given it to me as part of my dowry. With it, I could command the 36 guards who had accompanied me when I married. Those men ordinarily obeyed only me. I pushed open the window and spoke quietly to a guard standing in the courtyard. Bring Shenda and Shen-Er to me. The guard left at once. Before long, 2 strong men stood respectfully under the veranda. Madam, Shenda said. Prepare 2 carriages, one for people and one for belongings. Open the storehouse and take only the items listed on my original dowry inventory. Also retrieve the keys to my estate. I spoke quietly, but my tone left no room for argument. Shenda and Shen-Er exchanged a glance. Neither asked why. They turned and went to carry out my orders. I stood in the room and looked around. Every corner of this marquis's residence had been built on my dowry. The red sandalwood screen in the main hall, the mutton-fat jade ornaments on the display shelves, the golden thread Nanmu wood bed in the eastern wing. Hardly a valuable item here had not come from the Shen family. Pei Jingji, since you want to bring your white moonlight back, I will strip away the roots that have supported this household. About an hour later, Shenda returned. Madam, the carriages are ready. We have checked and loaded most of your dowry from the storehouse. Some of the larger pieces are difficult to move. Do you want us to? No, keep the inventory safe. Someone will come back for the rest later. Yes, madam. Shenda stepped aside. I changed into simple clothing, leaving off the cumbersome jewelry. I wore only a jade hairpin that my late mother had left me. Then I lifted Pei Nian into my arms, took the hand of my son Pei Zhao, who had just been brought back, and left the main courtyard. We had barely reached the second gate when the marquis's steward, Pei Zhong, blocked our way. Madam, where are you going? The marquis has not yet returned. If you wish to leave the residence, I will report it to him at once. He stood squarely in the middle of the path with a false smile. I stopped and swept my gaze over him. Since when do I need to report where I go to a servant like you? Pei Jingji stiffened, then straightened his back. Madam, I am the steward of the Marquis's residence. With his lordship away, I must attend to all matters here. Seeing so many carriages, this does not look like an ordinary visit to your family. I have no choice but to ask. And if I insist on leaving? I raised a brow. Then I can only beg your pardon for the offense. His lordship gave orders that if Madam tries to take the children away from the residence, she must have his permission. Pei Jingji waved his hand. More than a dozen household guards poured forward and blocked the path. I laughed. That laugh carried 7 years of resentment and the blood feud of my previous life. Pei Jingji, are you deaf or have you forgotten? Half the bricks and tiles in this residence were paid for by the Shen family. If I want to leave, why should I need anyone's permission? I raised my voice. Shenda Shen. As soon as I spoke, Shenda led all 36 of my guards in from both sides of the corridor. Each man carried a short blade, their murderous intent unmistakable. Pei Jingji's face changed. Madam, are you trying to rebel? Rebel? I said coldly. This residence was granted by the throne, but it is not a prison. I, Shen Junshu, have every right to walk through this gate today. Holding Pei Nian, I continued straight toward him. Move. Sweat appeared on Pei Jingji's forehead, yet he stubbornly held his ground. Madam, I cannot let you leave. Otherwise, when his lordship returns, I will have no way to answer to him. I kicked the back of his knee. Pain shot through his leg and he dropped to the ground with a thud. Whether you can answer to him is none of my concern. Shenda, if anyone tries to stop us again, show no mercy. Yes, madam. Shenda drew his short blade. The household guards immediately retreated. After all, the Marquis's household guards were not soldiers who had truly fought on a battlefield. How could they dare face men prepared to fight to the death? I strode out through the second gate with my son and daughter. Behind me, Pei Jingji struggled to his feet and shouted hoarsely, Quickly, go to the city gate and report to his lordship. Madame has left. She took the children with her. I ignored him completely. I handed Pei Nian to the wet nurse and lifted Pei Zhao into the carriage myself. Zhao was already 6 and understood more than his sister. He said nothing on the road, but his small hand clutched tightly at my clothes. Mother, are we going to grandmother's house? He asked in a small voice. Yes, from now on, that will be our home. I stroked his head. The carriage slowly left the Marquis Dingwan residence and headed toward Duke Angguo's estate in the south of the city. The evening wind blew through the curtains, carrying the chill of early autumn. I leaned against the carriage wall and closed my eyes. Pei Jingji, at this very moment, you should be at the Tenli Pavilion with Liu Ruyan, holding hands and gazing tearfully at each other. When you return and find the place deserted, I wonder what expression you will make. Halfway there, I suddenly changed my mind. Don't go to the Duke's residence, I called outside. Go to Qinghe Estate in the western suburbs. Shenda answered from outside, and the convoy changed direction. I did not return to my father because he was old, and I did not want my divorce to draw criticism toward the Shen family at court. Qinghe Estate had been part of my dowry. I held both the land deed and the house deed. It had high walls, deep courtyards, and people loyal to me. It was a place where I could defend myself and still strike back when necessary. By the time we reached Qinghe Estate, it was late at night. The estate manager had received word in advance and was waiting at the entrance with several older servants. Madam, the rooms have been prepared. Hot water and food are ready. I nodded and first settled the children. Pei Nian was already asleep. Pei Zhao was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open, yet he still forced himself to stay awake. Mother, are we really not going back? He held the corner of my sleeve, his voice close to tears. No. Zhao, from today onward, Mother never let anyone make you suffer again. I crouched so that our eyes were level. Pei Zhao nodded hard and finally gave in to exhaustion, falling asleep on the bed. I tucked the blanket around both children and went into the outer room. Shenda and Shen'er stood waiting beside the table. Madam, most of the dowry from the Marquis's residence has been brought here. This is the inventory. Shenda presented a register. I took it and glanced through the entries. It clearly listed 2 country estates, 6 shops, 132 pieces of gold and silver jewelry, 68 bolts of fine silk, and banknotes worth 120,000 taels of silver. And that was only part of my original dowry. It did not include what Pei Jingji had openly or secretly diverted over the years. Good. Starting tomorrow, send people to retrieve the account books from all 6 shops. If the managers cooperate, keep them. If they refuse, report them to the authorities. I closed the register, my gaze turning cold. Everything Pei Jingji owes me, I will make him return down to the last coin. Shenda acknowledged the order, and Liu Ruyan returned to the capital today. Pei Jingji will certainly arrange a place for her. Leave someone inside the marquise's household to keep watch and report everything that happens. Yes, madam, it has already been arranged. I nodded and dismissed them. When the room fell quiet, I walked to the window and looked at the cold moon outside. Every event of my previous life was vivid in my mind. Pei Jingji, Liu Ruyan, just wait. Since I have been given another life, I will never again let you have me at your mercy. That same night, Pei Jingji did not return to the marquis's residence until very late. He had gone outside the city to meet Liu Ruyan, accompanied her around the capital for a while, and finally settled her in a house in the eastern district before reluctantly returning home. The moment he entered, he sensed something was wrong. The residence was terrifyingly quiet. The servants kept their heads lowered and hardly dared breathe. Pei Zhong limped forward and dropped to his knees. My lord, I deserve death, madam. Madam took the eldest young master and young lady and left. Pei Jingji's face darkened instantly. Left? When? Why did no one stop her? She left at dusk. I tried to stop her, but Shenda and Shen brought 36 guards and forced their way out. We could not stop them, my lord. Madam also took most of the dowry from the storehouse. She even left a divorce agreement behind. A divorce agreement? Pei Jingji seized Pei Zhong by the collar. Where is she? I sent men after her, but she changed direction halfway and went to Qinghe Estate in the western suburbs. That estate belongs to madam as part of her dowry. Our people cannot enter. Pei Jingji released him, chest rising and falling violently. He strode to the main courtyard and kicked open the door. The room was nearly empty. Most of the priceless furnishings were gone, and the dressing table had been stripped bare. Only a letter remained beneath the candlestand. He snatched it up and tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with only a few lines. Our 7 years as husband and wife end today. The woman you have been waiting for has returned, so I will no longer stand in your way. I am taking our son and daughter. From this day forward, I have no further ties to you or the Marquis Dingyuan household. Shen Yunshu. After reading it, Pei Jingji's face turned livid. He crushed the paper in his fist and threw it to the ground. Shen Yunshu, how dare you? He stormed outside. Prepare the horses, we are going to Qinghe Estate. Pei Zhong looked miserable. My lord, Qinghe Estate is madam's dowry property. Without her permission we cannot force our way in, and the guards with her all came from Duke Angguo's household. If this escalates, Duke Angguo's household will certainly become involved. Pei Jingji stopped where he stood. Of course he knew the Shen family was not easy to provoke. Duke Angguo had never approved of his daughter marrying Pei Jingji beneath her station, but he had yielded because he could not bear to oppose her. Now Shen Yunshu had taken the children and left. If he tried to storm the estate, the duke would surely intervene. Yet he could not accept it. That woman had always been gentle and respectful, never openly defying him. How could she suddenly take the children and her dowry while he was away, then leave behind a divorce agreement? Ruyan returns to the capital, and she chooses this moment to make trouble for me. Very well indeed. Pei Jingji sneered, though beneath his anger was a trace of panic even he did not notice. He had always believed Shen Yunshu would endure everything in silence. After all, she had loved him for so many years. She had once fallen out with her own family just to marry him. How had she suddenly become so resolute? He remembered the writing on the divorce agreement. Every stroke was neat and steady. There had been no tremor at all. It was not a decision made in a moment of anger. Shen Yunshu was truly determined to leave him. My lord, should we still pursue her? Pei Zhong asked cautiously. Pei Jingji was silent for a long moment, then punched the doorframe. Pursue what? She is Duke Angguo's daughter. Tomorrow I will personally go to the duke's residence and demand an explanation. He said the words aloud, but deep inside he understood that the situation was already beyond his control. That night no one in the marquis's residence slept. The servants trembled and dared not gossip. Pei Jingji sat alone in the study, staring at the crumpled divorce agreement on the floor with a shadowed expression. He suddenly thought of Liu Ruyan's return that day. How had Shen Yunshu known? He had told no one. Had someone secretly warned her? His eyes narrowed as he began calculating. Whatever the reason, Shen Yunshu's departure had caught him completely off guard. As for Liu Ruyan, he had originally planned to proceed slowly, first getting his wife to accept her, then finding an excuse to demote his wife to a concubine or simply repudiate her. But Shen Yunshu had acted first. Worse, she had taken both children. And there was an even greater problem. The dowry she had removed represented nearly half the wealth supporting the Marquis Dingyuan household. Pei Jingji might appear prosperous in public, but in private he had depended heavily on Shen family money. If she truly demanded repayment of everything taken from her dowry, the household would suffer a crippling loss. Shen Yunchu, just wait. I will not let you walk away so easily, he muttered, a fierce, ruthless gleam in his eyes. Yet at that moment he could do nothing but sit there. At Qinghe Estate I stood by the window listening to the faint sound of the night watch in the distance. The corner of my mouth lifted. Pei Jingji, this is only the beginning. I turned toward the bed and looked at my sleeping children. Tenderness welled in my heart. In my previous life I had failed to protect them. In this life I would never allow anyone to hurt them again. I gently blew out the candle and closed my eyes in the darkness, knowing that the fire of my revenge had already been lit. I awoke before dawn. I had slept poorly. The memories of my previous life came again and again. Zhao'er's little hands flailing in the lotus pond, Nianer being dragged away while crying for her mother. I gave up trying to sleep and got out of bed to wash and dress. I summoned Shen Da. Go back to the Marquis's residence today and move the rest of my dowry. Do not wait for anyone to open the doors for you. Sitting before the bronze mirror, I fixed a plain silver hairpin into my hair and checked the dowry inventory item by item. If Pei Jingji tries to stop you, tell him to meet me at Shentian Prefecture. Shen'er has already gone there ahead of us. You only need to do your work. Shen Da accepted the order. He took 20 guards and 3 large wagons straight toward the Marquis's residence. I then told the manager to clear the storehouse behind Qinghe Estate, so there would be room for the belongings brought back that day. Afterward, I went to the side courtyard. Pei Zhao and Pei Nian were already awake. The wet nurse was helping Nian dress, while Zhao stood in the doorway staring up at the old locust tree in the courtyard, lost in thought. Zhao'er, come here. He ran over and lifted his little face. Mother. I crouched and straightened his collar. Mother has business to attend to today. Look after your sister and do not run around. If anyone comes, you are not to let them into the courtyard unless it is Shenda or Shen'er. Do you understand? He nodded firmly. Don't worry, Mother. I will protect my sister. I smiled and patted his shoulder. He was only 6, yet there was already a steadiness in his expression. In my previous life he had died at 8. In this life, no one would ever harm him. I left Qinghe's estate and boarded my carriage. Today I had to go to Shentian Prefecture in person. I had left the divorce agreement at the Marquis's residence, but the separation had not yet been formally registered with the authorities. I would not give Pei Jingji any opportunity to turn the matter against me later. As the carriage rolled forward, I leaned against the wall and considered his finances. Pei Jingji had looked magnificent these years, but privately he had accumulated serious deficits. His political networking and the expenses of the Marquis's household had all been supported by income from my shops and dowry. The previous day I had taken the deeds to the 6 most profitable shops and 2 estates, cutting off roughly half his regular cash flow. Today, once the remaining dowry was removed from the storehouse, he would struggle even to meet ordinary expenses. When my carriage stopped outside the Shentian Prefecture offices, I put on a veiled hat and stepped down with Sike's help. Shen'er was waiting at the entrance. Madam, the petition has already been submitted. Prefect Zhou asks you to wait briefly. He will open court immediately. I nodded. Prefect Zhou Hongyi was one of my father's former students and had some ties to the Shen family. Pei Jingji might be a marquis, but his roots in the capital were shallow. As Duke Angguo's legitimate daughter, my words still carried weight before Prefect Zhou. When I entered the courtroom, Zhou Hongyi was already seated behind the bench, with a clerk beside him. I stepped forward and bowed slightly. Shen Yunchu greets Prefect a hand. Madam Shen, there is no need for such ceremony. I have read your petition. You intend to accuse the Marquis Dingyuan of unlawfully occupying your dowry? Yes, Your Excellency. Pei Jingji and I have been husband and wife for 7 years and have 1 son and 1 daughter. I have now resolved to divorce him. I ask only to take back my own dowry and establish a separate household. But Pei Jingji has mixed my dowry property with the assets of the Marquis's residence and refuses to return it. I therefore submit the original dowry inventory from the time of my marriage and ask Your Excellency to judge fairly. I took the documents from Sike and handed them to the clerk. Prefect Zhou read several pages, and his brow tightened. The property listed here is no small amount. Madam Shen, are you certain these dowry items are still in the Marquis's residence? Most are. I recovered a portion yesterday, but some remain locked in the household storehouse, including my golden thread Nanmu wood bed, red sandalwood screen, mutton fat jade ornaments and other pieces. I have already sent the guards who came with my dowry to inventory and retrieved them. If the Marquis' household obstructs them, I expect the dispute will reach this courtroom today. Prefect Zhou nodded, and was about to speak when a constable hurried in. Your Excellency Pei Jingji, steward of the Marquis Dingyuan residence, requests an audience. He says he has an urgent complaint. The corner of my mouth rose. He had come quickly indeed. Let him in, Prefect Zhou ordered. Pei Jingji hurried inside and dropped to his knees, sweat covering his forehead. I am Pei Jingji, steward of the Marquis' residence. I pay my respects to your excellency. By his lordship's order, I have come to accuse Shen Yunshu of Duke Angguo's household of leading men into the Marquis' residence without permission, forcibly seizing property, and injuring household servants. I turned my head and looked at him through my veil. Pei Jingji, you had better be prepared to answer for those words. Yesterday, you brought men to stop me from leaving. Your household guards moved first. My guards merely defended themselves. Pei Jingji stubbornly held his head high. Madame brought 36 armed guards and forced her way through the second gate. You kicked me in the knee. Everyone in the residence saw it. I was leaving my own home. Since when do I need a servant's permission? And everything I removed was part of my own dowry. The inventory is here in black and white. I paused, then continued calmly, but since you are here, Pei Jingji, perhaps we should also settle the account of how much income from my shops you have helped Pei Jingji pocket over the years. My tone was mild, but every word cut like a blade. Pei Jingji's face went white. Madam, that is a malicious accusation. I turned to Prefect Zhou. Your Excellency, I came today for 2 reasons. First, to formalize my divorce, and second, to recover my dowry. As for the Marquis' household making reckless accusations against my people, I also brought evidence. I looked toward the door. Shen'er, bring him in. Shen'er left and soon returned with a thin middle-aged man under guard. The man dropped to his knees as soon as he entered the hall, trembling violently. I am Liu Ruyan, a clerk in charge of the Marquis' household accounts. I have something to confess. He kowtowed, terror filling his voice. When Pei Jingji saw him, his eyes widened. How are you here, Liu Ruyan? I said evenly. Tell everyone how the accounts of the Marquis' residence have been managed these past years. Liu Ruyan swallowed. Your Excellency, beginning 3 years ago, the household began spending more than it earned. The Marquis's salary and the income from his estates could not cover the expenses. Every month, silver had to be transferred from Madame's dowry shops into the household accounts, at least 3,000 taels a month, and even more at year-end or when gifts and favors had to be exchanged. Also, many objects from the household storehouse have already been pawned by his lordship. The money was used to make arrangements with officials in the Ministry of War and the Ministry of Personnel. Nonsense, Liu Ruyan, have you gone mad? Pei Jingji shouted. I am not lying. It is all recorded in the account books. I have a copied ledger here. Liu Ruyan took a yellowed booklet from his clothes and raised it over his head. The clerk carried it to Prefect Zhou, who read several pages. His face grew increasingly grave. Pei Jingji, is what Liu Ruyan says true? Sweat dripped from Pei Jingji's forehead, striking the courtroom floor in tiny dark circles. His mouth opened, but he could not get a full sentence out. I faced Prefect Zhou again. Your Excellency, you have heard it yourself. Pei Jingji is a marquis appointed by the throne, yet he has diverted his lawful wife's dowry, used it to fill his own pockets, and spent money in the name of the Marquis' residence to curry favor with officials. I am not even asking the court to investigate all the silver taken from me over the years. For now, I ask only to recover what remains of my dowry. That is not unreasonable, is it? Prefect Zhou set down the booklet and sighed. It is not unreasonable. This court rules that Shen Yunshu may recover every item belonging to her according to the original dowry inventory. No one may obstruct her. Pei Jingji, return and tell your master that if he continues to interfere without cause, I will have no choice but to submit a memorial of impeachment. Pei Jingji's face turned ashen. He acknowledged the order and staggered out. I sneered inwardly. This was only the beginning. Pei Jingji, did you think I would simply forget all the silver you took? I only wanted to recover my principal first. The full account would be settled later. After leaving Shuntian Prefecture, I removed my veil and let out a long breath. Warm sunlight fell across my face. Madam, are we returning to Qinghe Estate? Sikh asked. I shook my head. No, go to the Marquis' residence. I had no intention of stepping inside that place again, but I wanted to watch with my own eyes as Shen Da removed the rest of my property. I wanted everyone in the Marquis' household to understand that Shen Yunshu had not fled in disgrace. I had walked away openly and taken back what was mine. From a distance, I could already see Shinda and his men outside the main gate. 3 wagons had been loaded to the top. Several household servants stood on the steps with grim expressions, but none dared approach. Shenda saw my carriage and came forward quickly. "Madam, most of the large pieces are already out. Only some bulky old trunks and chests remain in the corners of the storehouse. The men are carrying those now." He lowered his voice. "The Marquis is not here. He left early this morning for the Ministry of War. Pei Jingji returned from Shuntian Prefecture and has hidden in the main courtyard ever since. Continue. Leave 2 men to watch the place. If anything is missed, come back tomorrow." As I spoke, a woman emerged through the main gate. She was slender, wearing a pale blue-white cloak and a veil that covered half her face, leaving only a pair of watery, expressive eyes visible. I recognized her immediately. Liu Ruyan. She recognized me as well. She paused briefly, then walked over. "Sister Shen." She curtsied, her voice soft. "It has been many years, have you been well?" I looked at her without expression. The enemy from my previous life stood directly in front of me. But I knew this was not yet the moment to strike. First, I wanted her to learn what it meant for the loss to outweigh the gain. "Miss Liu, you have addressed me incorrectly. I do not remember having a younger sister like you." Her expression stiffened beneath the veil, though she quickly recovered. "Sister, why must you be like this? I know my return has caused a misunderstanding between you and Brother Jingji. Why don't we go inside and talk? So many people pass by this gate. It would not sound good if word spread." I smiled, though the smile never reached my eyes. "What would not sound good? Pei Jingji and I are divorcing. Whomever he welcomes into his home has nothing to do with me. But you, Miss Liu, you are an unmarried woman already eager to settle yourself in another man's residence. That may indeed sound unpleasant if people hear of it." Liu Ruyan's gaze shifted. The hand hidden inside her sleeve clenched slightly. "You misunderstand. Brother Jingji is only letting me stay here temporarily. I will move as soon as I find another place. Then take your time finding one." I turned away from her. "Shenda, are we finished?" "Almost, madam." Seeing that I ignored her, Liu Ruyan stepped forward again. "Sister, what about the 2 children? They are still Brother Jingji's own flesh and blood. If you take them away like this, he will be heartbroken." I snapped my head toward her. My gaze was sharp as a blade. "Liu Ruyan, listen carefully. Pei Zhao and Pei Nian are my children. From the moment we crossed that gate last night, they ceased to have anything to do with this household. You had better keep your schemes away from them. If you dare set your sights on either of my children, I will make you regret ever returning to the capital." My gaze forced her half a step backward. Her face went pale. I gave her no further attention and boarded the carriage. Shenda and the others followed with the final wagon. As we drove away, I looked through the curtain and saw Liu Ruyan still standing at the gate, staring after us. Her eyes held hurt, anger, and a trace of calculation she could not hide. I lowered the curtain, a cold smile curling at my lips. "Liu Ruyan, do you think tears and weakness will be enough to hold Pei Jingji forever? In this life, I will make you watch with your own eyes as he loses everything step by step." Back at Qing Estate, Shenda directed the unloading while I sat in the front hall listening to the manager's report. "Madam, I sent men to all 6 shops this morning. 4 of the managers have served the Shen family for years. Once they saw your written order, they immediately surrendered the account books. The other 2, a silk shop and a grain shop, are run by men loyal to the Marquis. They refuse to hand anything over and say they will wait for his lordship's instructions. Do not touch them yet. Bring me the account books from the 4 cooperative shops." I took the ledgers and turned the pages one by one. These shops had once formed part of my mother's dowry and had later passed to me. For years, their income had been managed through the accounts of the Marquis's residence, with Pei Jingji sending people each month to collect the silver. Only now, reading the books myself, did I discover that beginning 3 years earlier, the reported profits had been falsified downward. These were thriving shops, yet the accounts reported nothing but losses. Naturally, the missing silver had gone into Pei Jingji's pocket. "Send 2 men to follow the managers of the 2 shops that refused to surrender their books. Record where they go tonight and whom they meet." I closed the ledger. The manager acknowledged the order. At dinner, Pei Zhao and Pei Nian sat on either side of me. Nian ate so enthusiastically that oil shone around her mouth, and the wet nurse kept wiping it away. Zhao, however, seemed troubled. He picked up a piece of food with his chopsticks, then put it back down. He lowered his head. "Mother, does father not want us anymore?" My heart tightened. I put down my chopsticks and drew him close. "It is not that he abandoned you. Mother is the one who brought you away. Zhao, from now on, you and your sister will live with Mother. I will always be with you." But the servant said that once Aunt Liu came back, father wouldn't love us anymore. His voice was barely audible. They were talking nonsense. I squeezed his hand. But Zhaoer, mother needs to tell you something. From today onward, you have no father. Remember this, you are a son of the Shen family, not a young master of the Marquis' residence. If anyone asks, you will say your surname is Shen. Pei Zhao looked up at me in confusion. But mother, my surname is Pei, yours is Shen. My voice was gentle but firm. Your maternal grandfather is Shen, mother is Shen. The children of our Shen family have no reason to depend on anyone else. He stared for a moment, then nodded slowly. Pei Nian lifted her head from her bowl and announced in her babyish voice, Nianer is Shen too. I smiled and stroked her hair. That night, after putting the children to bed, I sat alone under the lamp reading the deeds and ledgers from the shops. These properties were the foundation on which I could rebuild my life, and weapons I could use against Pei Jingji. Shen Da entered quietly. Madam, our informant inside the Marquis' residence sent word. His lordship returned this evening, saw that the storehouse had been emptied, and flew into a rage. Liu Ruyan spent more than an hour with him in the study. After she left, he sent many gifts to the Liu residence in the Eastern District. He also said that tomorrow he will enter the palace to request an audience. An audience? I frowned. Yes. We hear he intends to ask His Majesty to grant Liu Ruyan the title of Commandery Princess, so that he can later receive her into the household with the honors due that rank. I gave a cold laugh. Pei Jingji, you truly cannot wait. Your white moonlight has barely returned, and already you want to seek an imperial decree for her. Was marrying Duke Anguo's legitimate daughter not enough? Now you want to bring another commandery princess into the household. But could he obtain what he wanted? Liu Ruyan's father had long ago been dismissed from office because of a criminal case. As the daughter of a disgraced official, her return to the capital was already precarious, and Pei Jingji still wanted to have her made a commandery princess. He was staking his own title on the request. Continue watching them, I said. After Shenda withdrew, I stood at the window. The night wind stirred the old locust tree in the courtyard. Tomorrow, I thought, it was time to see father. I owed my family an explanation for the divorce. My mother had died years ago. My father was elderly, and my only younger brother, Shen Yunfan, served as an official far from the capital. I could not allow Pei Jingji to reach my father first and smear my name. I returned to the desk, wrote a letter, and had it delivered to Duke Anguo's residence that very night, saying I would visit the next day. When I finished, I extinguished the lamp and went to the bed. Zhao and Nian slept side by side, their small faces flushed with warmth. I bent and kissed each forehead. With mother here, no one will ever hurt you again. At that same hour, the Marquis' residence was brightly lit. Pei Jingji sat in his study, tapping one finger repeatedly against the desk. Pei Zhong stood nearby with his hands at his sides, hardly daring breathe. She went to Shunstian Prefecture? Pei Jingji asked in a cold voice. Yes. Prefect Zhou ruled that Madame may recover her property according to the dowry inventory. I could not stop them. Zhou Hongyi, that old fool. He relies on being Duke Anguo's former student and dares to rule against me. Does he remember that I am a marquis appointed by the throne? Pei Jingji slammed his palm on the desk, making the teacups rattle. Pei Zhong lowered his voice. My lord, now that the dowry has been removed, the household accounts may not last through this month. Of the 6 shops, only 2 are managed by our own people. The other 4 have already surrendered their ledgers. We may not even be able to pay the servants' monthly wages on time. Pei Jingji's face darkened further. Go to the Eastern District and borrow some silver from Miss Liu's household for temporary use. Pei Zhong looked uncomfortable. My lord, that residence was also rented by you for Miss Liu. She has only just returned to the capital. Where would she have silver to lend? Pei Jingji was silent for a moment, then gritted his teeth. Then borrow it elsewhere, use my name. Get 2,000 taels first, and we will find a way through the month. Pei Zhong retreated. Alone in the study, Pei Jingji again saw Shen Yunshu's face and his mind calmed to the point of coldness. The woman who had once looked at him with nothing but admiration had somehow become utterly decisive. He clenched his fist. Shen Yunshu, since you dared leave, do not imagine you can ever return. What he did not know was that the 2 shops he valued most were already being visited that very night. In the Western Market, Qian Wanbao, manager of the silk shop, was preparing to close. He had only put up half the shutters when someone outside stopped them. Manager Qian, no need to close so quickly. A broad-shouldered man pushed his way inside with 3 companions behind him. Qian Wanbao's expression changed. Who are you? Our madam sent us to collect the account books. The leader smiled and took a token from his clothes. This is a dowry shop belonging to the Shen family. Madam wants to examine the last 3 years of accounts. Qian Wanbao recognized the token and sweat appeared on his brow. This is a business of the Marquis' household. You cannot just do as you please. The Marquis' business? The man laughed. Manager Qian, have you forgotten that the land deed and house deed for this shop are listed on Madame Shen's dowry inventory? How much of the monthly profit you reported to the Marquis's household was genuine, and how much was falsified? Madame already knows. Hand over the ledgers and we can still speak politely. Refuse. The three men behind him stepped forward, each holding a short club. Qian Wanbao's knees weakened. He pointed shakily toward the counter, the hidden compartment behind the counter. A quarter of an hour later, the four men disappeared into the night with the account books. At the same time, the grain shop in the northern part of the city received the same kind of visit. I lay in my bed at Qinghe Estate, listening to the faint sound of the night watch outside, a slight smile on my lips. Pei Jingji, the two pillars you depended on have already fallen. Tomorrow morning I will let the entire capital see how you, Pei Jingji, manage without me, Shen Yunchu. For the next 3 days I did not leave the estate. I spent my time teaching Zhao and Nian to read, looking through the recovered shop ledgers, and letting my people watch developments outside for me. On the afternoon of the 4th day, Shen'er returned in greater haste than usual. Madam, there's been a development. I set down the embroidery frame in my hands and looked up. Bitao, Liu Ruyan's personal maid, went to an apothecary in the Western Market this morning. She bought a packet of something, then circled through 3 alleys before meeting Granny Zhao, a sweeper who works near the back gate of our estate. They spoke for roughly the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Bitao gave Granny Zhao a small cloth packet. Granny Zhao tucked it away, returned through the rear courtyard, and went into the kitchen before coming out again. I nodded without surprise. I had been waiting for something like this for 3 days. Did you identify what was in the packet? Yes. Granny Zhao entered the kitchen while the wet nurse was preparing sweet soup for the young lady. She set the packet of powder beside the stove. I followed her in, and while she was not looking, swapped that packet for one filled with flour. The untouched powder is now in my hands. Shen'er took out a folded paper packet. Inside was a pale yellow powder. I asked the apothecary. It is croton powder. Its effect is not especially strong, but a child who takes it could suffer non-stop diarrhea for days. I took the packet, smelled it, and handed it back. Where is Granny Zhao? Still sweeping the rear courtyard. She has noticed nothing. I considered for a moment, then summoned Zeike and quietly gave her several instructions. Zeike nodded and left. Shen'er, I need one more thing from you. I stepped into the corridor and looked at the autumn begonias blooming in the courtyard. Find out everything about Granny Zhao's family. She has one son. Her husband died 2 years ago. The son is named Zhao Erju and works as a cart driver at a transport company in the Eastern Market. Take him into custody. Do not hurt him. Bring him to the estate and keep him in the rear servants' quarters. Make certain Granny Zhao learns that he is here. I spoke calmly, then added, after that, go to the Marquise's residence and deliver a message to Pei Jingji. Shen'er looked up. What message, madame? Tell him Qinghe Estate has discovered a traitor among its servants. Someone attempted to put something into my daughter's food. I have detained the culprit and intend to turn her over to the authorities. But considering that Pei Jingji and I were husband and wife for 7 years, I will give him 3 days to investigate his own household first. If the Marquis's residence cannot give me an explanation after 3 days, I will send the culprit and her confession directly to Shuntian Prefecture. Shen'er accepted the order and left. I returned to the room. Zhao was practicing calligraphy at the desk, while Nian sat on the couch playing with a cloth tiger. My gaze softened. Liu Ruyan, you thought buying off a mere sweeper would let you touch my child. I will show you what it means to walk into your own trap. That evening, Shen'er brought Granny Zhao's son, Zhao Erju, back to the estate and settled him in the rear quarters. As soon as Granny Zhao heard, she ran to the front hall, fell to her knees, and kowtowed repeatedly. Madam, I was foolish. I deserve death. Please spare my sons. I will tell you everything, she sobbed until her face was covered with tears and mucus. I sat at the head of the hall, holding a cup of tea without even looking at her. You do deserve death. I, Shen Yunshu, have never treated you poorly. You have worked at this estate for less than a year, and I have never withheld a single coin of your wages. Yet for a little silver, you were willing to harm my daughter. I put down the cup. My voice remained quiet, but each word was cold as ice. Madam, I did not know it was croton powder. Miss Bitao only said her mistress wanted me to put something into the young lady's snack. She said it would make the child have an upset stomach for a day or two and leave Madam too busy to think of anything else. She swore it would not kill anyone. I was blinded by greed. I took 30 taels. Please show mercy. She knocked her forehead against the floor until it bled. I gave a cold laugh. Liu Ruyan's scheme looked minor, but it was vicious. A 5-year-old child suffering severe diarrhea for several days could become dangerously weak or even die. And even if Nian survived, once word spread, people would say Shen Yunshu could not care for her own daughter after leaving her husband. They might even accuse me of mistreating the children. Then Pei Jingji would have an excuse to demand custody of both of them. Remember this, whether your son lives or dies depends entirely on you. I motioned for Seek to help her up. Shen'er, take her to write a full confession. Every word must be recorded clearly. Shen'er led her away. For the next 2 days, the estate remained quiet. I doubled the precautions around everything Zhao and Nian ate or drank, and Sheik personally inspected anything that entered their mouths. On the morning of the 3rd day, Pei Jingji arrived, just as expected. He came with Pei Zhong and 2 attendants, but the guards at the gate stopped them. From outside he raised his voice. Shen Yunshu, you sent word saying someone tried to harm Nian. What happened? Let me in. I stood inside the courtyard and told Shenda, let him enter, him alone. Pei Jing strode into the front hall with a dark expression. He wore a black brocade robe. At his waist still hung a jade pendant with a tassel I had embroidered for him. 7 years had passed. The tassel was worn with age, yet he still wore it. I glanced at it and looked away. Shen Yunshu, explain this clearly. Who tried to hurt Nian? His gaze swept back and forth between me and the children. Zhao and Nian sat in the inner room with the wet nurse, peering curiously through the bead curtain. I remained seated at the head of the hall and signaled Seek to bring out the evidence. This is the croton powder Granny Zhao received from Bitao, the personal maid of that Miss Liu of yours. I pointed to the paper packet on the table. Granny Zhao has already confessed. Bitao instructed her to put it into Nian's sweet soup while the wet nurse was distracted. Her signed confession is here. Pei Jingji's face turned livid. He stepped forward, seized the confession, and quickly read several lines. That is impossible. He looked up, shocked and furious. Ruyan would never do such a thing. She has always been kind. How could she kind? I laughed once, full of contempt. Pei Jingji, you and she were separated for 7 years. You do not even know what kind of person she has become, yet you trust her without question. I looked directly at him. Then answer me this. If you had not come today, and Nian truly had eaten that bowl of sweet soup and suffered for several days, what would you have done? Would it not have been convenient to tell everyone that Shen Yunshu was incapable of caring for her own child, then use that as a reason to take both children back to the Marquis's residence? For an instant, his face froze. He opened his mouth but said nothing. I had hit the mark. Perhaps you did not come because you were worried about Nian at all. Perhaps you came because you feared this matter would grow and drag Liu Ruyan into it. I kept pressing him, my voice calm but unmistakably forceful. Pei Jingji, whatever game the 2 of you want to play, aim it at me. But if either of you ever schemes against my children again, then even if I have to stake my own life on it, I will drag both of you to the grave with me. Pei Jingji's knuckles went white. Shen Yunshu, this is only Granny Zhao's word. Even if Bitao met her, that does not prove Ruyan ordered anything. Perhaps Bitao acted on her own. A maid would decide for no reason to harm my daughter? What would she gain from it? I cut him off. Pei Jingji, there is no need to argue with me. I gave you 3 days to investigate. Today is the 3rd day. If you cannot produce an explanation, tomorrow I will send Granny Zhao, the croton powder and her confession to Shuntian Prefecture. Then you can decide for yourself whether your dear Ruyan can walk away untouched. Pei Jingji stared at me. Anger and shock churned in his eyes, along with a panic he was desperately trying to hide. Shen Yunshu, you have changed, he said at last, his voice low. Yes, I should have changed long ago. I met his gaze without avoiding it. At that moment, noise suddenly rose outside. Shen Da entered quickly. Madam, Miss Liu from the Marquis's household asks to see you. She says she heard his lordship came here and was worried, so she followed. I raised a brow and looked at Pei Jingji. Look, she is here, perfect timing. We can confront her in person. Pei Jingji's expression worsened. Let her in. Of course. I also want to hear how she explains herself. I nodded to Shenda. Invite her in. A moment later, Liu Ruyan entered with graceful steps. She wore a pale pink dress and a white jade hairpin, with only light makeup on her face. She looked delicate enough to inspire pity at first glance. But when she saw Pei Jingji, unease flashed through her eyes before she could hide it. Brother Jingji, why did you come here? I heard. She walked to his side, her voice gentle and wounded. Ruyan, Pei Jingji said, keeping his voice as calm as he could while his eyes remained fixed on her. Shen Yunshu says you had Bitao bribe a servant at this estate to put croton powder in Nian's food. Liu Ruyan's expression froze. Then her eyes immediately reddened. Sister Shen, how can you slander me like this? I never did such a thing. Brother Jingji, you must believe me. How could I possibly harm a little child? Am I that kind of person? Tears began falling as she spoke. She looked at me as though I were the one who had wronged her. I watched her performance and sneered inwardly. In my previous life, this same fragile expression had helped drive me to ruin. In this life, her tears would never deceive me again. Liu Ruyan, do not be so quick to cry. Your maid Batao has been missing from the Marquis's residence since early this morning, hasn't she? Her sobbing stopped for an instant and she looked at me. You thought that sending Batao out of the city would leave no witness. Unfortunately for you, you were one step too late. I glanced at Shenda. He went to the door and signaled outside. 2 guards entered with a maid between them. It was Batao. Her hair was disheveled and tears stained her face. The moment she saw Liu Ruyan, she lowered her head in terror. Batao, tell us yourself, I said. Batao fell to her knees, shaking violently. It was Miss Liu who ordered me. Miss said she wanted to teach Madame Shen a lesson and make his lordship see that Madame could not even care properly for the children. Then his lordship could take the children back, and Miss could become the legitimate lady of the Marquis's household. She swallowed and continued through her fear. Miss gave me 50 taels to buy croton powder, and told me to find Granny Zhao near the rear gate of Qinghe Estate. After the matter was done, she said she would send me out of the city until things calmed down. Liu Ruyan's face drained of color. You are lying. When did I ever ask you to do such things? Brother Jingji, Batao must have been bought by them to frame me. Miss, I am not lying, Batao cried. I still have the 50 taels you gave me. They are hidden in the dressing case at the house in the Eastern District. And I kept the note you wrote telling me to buy the medicine from Jiren Apothecary in the Western Market. She pulled a neatly folded slip of paper from her sleeve. Pei Jingji stepped forward, took it, and unfolded it. I glanced at the writing. It was unmistakably Liu Ruyan's hand. His fingers began to tremble. Ruyan, this is your writing. His voice was hoarse with disbelief. Liu Ruyan collapsed to the floor. Her tears streamed down like beads from a broken string, but she could no longer form a coherent denial. Brother Jingji, I was confused for a moment. I was terrified of losing you. Sister Shen took the children away, and I was afraid you might change your mind because of them. That is why I truly did not mean to kill Nian. I only wanted her to become ill for a while, so Sister Shen would be distracted. Please believe me, I never intended to take her life. I could not help letting out a cold laugh. You did not mean to take her life? Liu Ruyan, she is 5 years old. 3 straight days of diarrhea, even if it did not kill her, would leave her half dead. And you think one sentence? I was confused. Can erase that? I walked over and looked down at her. If you had the courage to admit what you did, I might at least think you had a spine. Instead, all you know how to do is pretend to be pitiful and push responsibility onto others. Then I looked at Pei Jingji. So this is the white moonlight you have yearned for all these years. His face was ashen. His lips moved, but not a word came out. Liu Ruyan suddenly clung to his leg and wept desperately. Brother Jingji, save me. I cannot be taken to Shentian Prefecture. If I am charged, my father will never have a chance to regain his position. The Liu family will truly be finished. Brother Jingji, for the sake of everything between us in the past, please save me. Pei Jingji looked down at her with an expression too complicated to read. He started to reach out to help her, then stopped midway. I watched coldly. This was exactly what I wanted. Pei Jingji had to see with his own eyes what kind of woman he had cherished all these years. Shen Yunchu, he finally said, his voice strained. Ruyan was wrong, but she is still a woman. If this truly reaches Shentian Prefecture, her life will be ruined. Can you, for my sake, let her off this once? I laughed softly, and the entire hall went silent. For your sake, Pei Jingji, what right do you think you still have to ask anything of me? I looked straight at him, and spoke one word at a time. You indulged her while she tried to harm my daughter, and now you ask me to spare her for your sake. You have some nerve. He was left speechless. Shenda, go invite officers from Shentian Prefecture. I turned away from them. Wait. Pei Jingji raised his voice. Shen Yunchu, all you want is to humiliate me. Fine. I can agree to one condition if you let Ruyan go this time. I stopped and turned back. What can you possibly offer me? I can write a formal declaration voluntarily relinquishing custody of both children. From this day forward, Pei Zhao and Pei Nian will live with you, and I will never fight you for them. He forced the words out through clenched teeth. I looked at him with open contempt. Even now, he was still thinking only of protecting Liu Ruyan. This man was truly beyond saving. The children are already with me. You could not take them even if you tried. I shook my head. But since you are willing to put it in writing, then write it. Once the document is completed, I will have it registered at Shentian Prefecture. I paused. In exchange, I will not file a criminal complaint against Liu Ruyan over this incident. But from today onward she is forbidden to set foot in Qinghe Estate, and I will not conceal what happened. The entire capital will know that she hired someone to harm my young daughter, and that you, Pei Jingji, chose to protect the person responsible. Do you accept that? Pei Jingji's face was livid. Liu Ruyan trembled from head to toe. Shen Yunshu, must you drive her to ruin? He growled. Drive her to ruin? I walked close and stared into his eyes. Pei Jingji, you and Liu Ruyan owe me debts I have not even begun collecting. This is only a warning. If either of you dares touch my children again, next time I will make sure the one responsible dies without even a place to be buried. My gaze forced him back a step. Liu Ruyan was sprawled on the floor, too frightened even to cry properly. I ordered Shenda to bring paper and brush. Pei Jingji stood there gripping the brush so tightly that his hand shook. Finally, he clenched his jaw and wrote a formal declaration relinquishing custody of the children. I made him press his fingerprint onto the document and sent Shen to register it with Shentian Prefecture. When everything was finished, I told Shenda, see the guests out. Pei Jingji left the estate in humiliation with Liu Ruyan. At the gate she turned back to look at me. Her eyes held hatred, fear, and even more unwillingness to accept defeat. I met that stare and lifted my chin slightly. Liu Ruyan, this is still only the beginning. That evening, Shen took copies of Granny Zhao's confession and Bitao's testimony to Shentian Prefecture, together with Pei Jingji's signed declaration relinquishing custody of the children. As promised, I did not formally accuse Liu Ruyan. But after leaving Shentian Prefecture, Shen stopped at several familiar tea houses and restaurants. In casual conversation, he allowed the story to reach a few professional storytellers. Within 2 days, the entire capital was talking about it. Liu Ruyan, the long-lost white moonlight Marquis Dingyuan Pei Jingji, had been back in the capital less than 10 days when she bribed a servant to drug the Marquis's own young daughter. Not only had the Marquis refused to pursue the matter, he had pressured his lawful wife into dropping it. Shen Yunshu, desperate to protect her daughter, had been forced to take her children and divorce him. The tale spread everywhere. Liu Ruyan no longer dared show her face in public and soon stopped staying openly at the Eastern District House. Pei Jingji was overwhelmed by scandal and heard whispers everywhere he went. Meanwhile, I sat at Qinghe Estate eating dinner with Zhao and Nian. Nian held up her spoon and asked in a soft childish voice, Mother, why are people outside all talking about us? I smiled and stroked her head. Because Mother is seeking justice for both of you. Then I looked at her seriously. Nianer, when you grow up, you must become someone no one dares bully. Do you understand? She nodded without fully understanding and returned to her food. Zhao put down his chopsticks and looked at me earnestly. Mother, I will never let anyone bully you or sister again. His eyes looked much like Pei Jingji's, yet my heart held only comfort. My Zhao took after the Shen family, not the Pei family. That night I sat in the study and wrote several words on a sheet of paper. Marquis Dingyuan. Deficit. Military funds. That was Pei Jingji's greatest weakness. After I died in my previous life, my spirit lingered for a time. I once heard one of his political enemies impeach him. Pei Jingji had diverted military funds to help Liu Ruyan's father regain official status. The military allocation involved amounted to only 30,000 taels, but that alone was enough to have his household's property confiscated and to bring criminal charges against him. In this life, I had not originally intended to go that far. But Pei Jingji had chosen to indulge Liu Ruyan while she attacked my child. Then he could not blame me for being ruthless. I extinguished the candle and looked into the heavy darkness beyond the window. Tomorrow, it was time to see father. Before dawn, I left Qingxi Estate. As the carriage passed through the western market, I lifted one corner of the curtain. Most shops were still closed. Only a few breakfast stalls had people gathered around them. I lowered the curtain and leaned back against the seat. Today I was going to Duke Ongguo's residence in the south of the city, not far from Marquis Dingyuan's residence. I had not returned since leaving Pei Jingji. It was not because I did not want to see my father. Some matters simply had to develop further before I could speak to him about them. When the carriage arrived, the gatekeeper recognized it from a distance and hurried to send word inside. As I stepped down, the old steward Shenbo came out to meet me. Miss, you have finally come home. His Grace says nothing, but I can tell he has been waiting every day for you to visit. Shenbo's eyes were slightly red. I nodded. Is father awake? He is. He is practicing swordsmanship in the rear courtyard. I crossed the front hall and went straight to the back. Father was indeed practicing. Though past 60, he was still strong, wielding a sword called Qingfeng so forcefully that it whistled through the air. Hearing my steps, he stopped and turned. you're back." His tone was cool, but his gaze lingered on my face for a moment with unmistakable concern. "Father," I bowed deeply. "Your daughter has been unfilial. I should have come sooner." He snorted and handed his sword to an attendant. "So you still remember you have a home. The capital has been full of rumors for days, while you hide in that estate without showing your face. Do you know Pei Jingji came here yesterday to complain? He said it was not enough that you ignored 7 years of marriage and took the children away. You also humiliated Liu Ruyan so thoroughly that she no longer dares appear in public. He certainly knows how to complain." I smiled. "Father, whom do you believe?" He glared at me. "You are my daughter. Of course I believe you. But you moved too quickly. Divorce him if you must, but why take both children and drag the matter all the way to Shentian Prefecture? However worthless Pei Jingji may be, he is still a marquis personally ennobled by the imperial court. Once you openly break with him, he can make trouble for you both openly and behind the scenes throughout the capital." I sat at the stone table and poured myself tea. "Father, that is precisely why I had to strike first. Because he holds a marquisate, the longer I waited, the more disadvantageous it would become for me and the children." Father sat opposite me and sighed. "Then, what do you intend to do next? You cannot hide at Qinghe Estate forever. You are divorced and raising 2 children. People in the capital will gossip. Why not move back here? With me present, they will not dare go too far." I shook my head. "Father, I cannot move back. If I do, Pei Jingji will accuse the Shen family of using its position to crush him, and someone like Liu Ruyan cannot be guarded against easily. I will not bring danger into Duke Angguo's residence." Father's face darkened. "She would dare? She already has. A few days ago, she bribed Granny Zhao to put croton powder into Nian's food. Had I not prepared for it, Nian might still be lying sick in bed." Though my tone was calm, Father slammed a palm onto the stone table. "That happened? Then why did you not report her to the authorities?" "I agreed not to report her," I replied, "on the condition that Pei Jingji sign a declaration relinquishing custody of the children. It has already been registered at Shentian Prefecture. With that document in place, neither of them will ever be able to take the children from me again." I set down my tea. "As for Liu Ruyan, I want her first to taste what it is like to lose her reputation throughout the capital." Father studied my face, his anger slowly giving way to seriousness. "Father, I came today because there is something more important." I glanced around. Shenbo understood at once and led the servants away. When we were alone, I lowered my voice. "Father, I want to leave Pei Jingji no chance to recover. His household appears prosperous, but in truth it is deeply in debt. More importantly, he once tampered with military funds for private purposes. If that matter comes to light, he will not merely lose his title. He may lose his life." Father's eyes sharpened. "Military funds? Do you have evidence?" "Yes. 3 years ago the Ministry of Revenue allocated 30,000 taels for military supplies. 15,000 taels were diverted while passing through Pei Jingji's hands. He used the money to make arrangements for Liu Ruyan's father, Liu Chengzong, who had previously been dismissed over a criminal case. He hoped to use his connections to have Liu Chengzong reinstated." I continued slowly, making every word clear. "The money passed through a director in the Ministry of War named Zhao Kui. Zhao Kui kept 3,000 taels for himself. The rest went to the Ministry of Personnel. I obtained the evidence from Liu San, the accountant from the Marquis's household. Liu San is now staying at Qinghe Estate. I have the ledgers, receipts, and related records." Father's expression changed from shock to gravity, and finally to cold resolve. "You must think carefully. Once this is exposed, it becomes an enormous case. If Pei Jingji is convicted of misappropriating military funds, it is a grave crime punishable by confiscation of the family estate and extermination of the clan. But he is still the biological father of your 2 children. Do you truly want him dead?" I met his eyes without yielding. "Father, if I do not expose him, he will keep finding ways to attack me and the children. This is a fight to the death. Either he dies or the children and I will be doomed beyond recovery. I have no way to retreat." Father was silent for a long time before nodding slowly. "Very well, give me the evidence. I will present it directly to His Majesty at tomorrow's morning court." I shook my head. "You cannot be the one to impeach him directly. You are my father. If you submit the memorial, people will say you are using public office to avenge a private grievance. We need someone else's hand." Father considered my words. "You mean the censorate?" Lord Gu, the left censor-in-chief of the censorate, has never been on good terms with Pei Jingji. If the evidence reaches him, he will be eager to present the accusation himself. What you need to do is simply make clear, if His Majesty asks, that Duke Angguo's household has no remaining ties to him and will not shield him." Father stroked his beard and gave a faint smile. "When did you learn to plan things so carefully?" Still, Gu is an old fox who values self-preservation. A household accountant's ledger alone may not be enough to make him act. That is why I need your help. Your position as a duke carries weight. Once you state openly in court that the Shen family has severed all connection with Pei Jingji, Censor Gu will know he has nothing to fear from you. I paused. And Zhao Kui is timid. If Censor Gu takes control of him first, Zhao Kui will confess Pei Jingji's involvement to save himself. Father nodded. Good. Return and organize everything. Send the evidence here quietly. I will visit Censor Gu tonight. I stood and bowed deeply. Thank you, father. He waved a hand, his eyes full of pain for me. You are a daughter of the Shen family. I watched you suffer through these 7 years. If I had known it would become this, I would never have allowed you to marry that animal. There is no use regretting it now. Just remember that as long as I am alive, no one in this capital will bully you again. My nose stung, but I held back my tears. I could not cry. Not yet. After leaving Duke Angguo's residence, I sent Shen'er back to Qinghe Estate for the ledgers and letters, and had Liu San brought over as well. Shen'er worked quickly. By evening, everything had been delivered into father's hands. That night, father indeed visited Censor Gu's residence. No one knew what they discussed. But early the next morning, before morning court had ended, an impeachment memorial was placed before the emperor. It had been submitted by Censor Gu of the censorate. The memorial accused Marquis Dingyuan, Pei Jingji, of privately misappropriating military pay, forming factions for private gain, and indulging a mistress who had plotted to harm his legitimate daughter. The emperor was furious. In open court he ordered the Court of Judicial Review, the Ministry of Justice, and the censorate to conduct a joint investigation. Pei Jingji was to be arrested immediately, and the Marquis Dingyuan residence was to be searched and sealed. The news reached Qinghe Estate while I was teaching Zhao from a history book. Shenda hurried inside, unable to hide his satisfaction. Madam, it is done. Censor Gu submitted the memorial this morning. His Majesty ordered an immediate arrest. Pei Jingji was seized by imperial guards just after leaving the palace and taken to the Court of Judicial Review. The Marquis's residence has been surrounded. The household is being searched and its property confiscated. I closed the book in my hands and stood. Zhao looked up, unease filling his small face. Mother, father, is he? I crouched to his level. Zhaoer, your father broke the law of the realm. The law will decide his punishment. Whatever happens to him, you do not need to worry on his behalf. You only need to grow into a good son of the Shen family. Zhao nodded, not fully understanding. I asked the wet nurse to stay with both children, changed clothes, and left with Shenda and several guards. As our carriage approached the Marquis Dingyuan residence, we could see imperial guards sealing the entire lane. Crowds of commoners packed the entrance to the street, pointing and whispering toward the residence. I stopped at a tea house nearby, put on a veiled hat, and went to the second floor. From the window I could see the main gates clearly. The vermilion doors had already been sealed. Imperial guards carried boxes and chests out one after another. Among the confiscated items I recognized the red sandalwood screen, mutton-fit jade ornaments, bolts of silk, and many other things. They were all part of my dowry. Madam, Shenda said quietly behind me, those are the remaining items from the residence. Before the search began, Pei Zhong tried to send some things out through the rear gate. The imperial guards caught him in the act. A cold smile touched my lips. Pei Jingji, so this day has finally come for you too. What about Liu Ruyan? I asked without turning. The house in the Eastern District is already under guard. She is Liu Chengzong's daughter, and has long-standing ties to the Marquis. With the joint investigation by the 3 judicial offices underway, she cannot avoid questioning. She has already been taken to the Court of Judicial Review. I nodded and looked down again. Pei Zhong stood at the residence gate with his hands tied behind his back. His former arrogance had vanished. All that remained was panic and despair. After watching for a while, I turned away. Let us go to the Court of Judicial Review. The carriage changed direction. On the way I had Shenda buy 2 packets of plain pastries. At the Court of Judicial Review, the court guards recognized my carriage and came forward. Madam Shen, what brings you here? I brought some food for the servants detained from the Marquis household. They may be prisoners now, but some of them once served under me. I handed over the pastries. Please help me deliver these. I will not go inside. The guard hesitated, then accepted them. Shenda asked quietly, Madam, you do not want to see the Marquis? I shook my head. Not yet. I returned to the carriage. Where next, madam? Shenda asked from outside. The house Liu Ruyan used in the Eastern District. When we arrived, the property had also been sealed, with 2 officers guarding the entrance. I did not approach. Instead, I sent Shen'er to find out whose name was on the deed. He returned soon afterward. Madam, the Marquis bought this house half a year ago in your name. The deed was kept in his study. Since it was found during the search, the Imperial Guards have temporarily sealed it as property connected to the Marquis's estate. I raised a brow. Pei Jingji had planned ahead more carefully than I had realized. By placing the house in my name, if Liu Ruyan's presence there ever caused trouble, he could try to shift the responsibility onto me and claim that I had housed his mistress there. Let it remain sealed. Return to the estate. By the time we headed back, night had fallen. Lanterns were being lit along the streets, but people were still discussing the seizure of the Marquis Dingyuan residence. From time to time, phrases like embezzled military funds drifted through the carriage curtains. I leaned against the wall, calm inside. This had only pulled Pei Jingji down from his high position. There was still more to come. The next day Shen'er reported that the joint trial had begun. Under torture, Zhou Kui confessed Pei Jingji's involvement. At first he tried to deny everything, but Liu San's ledgers and Zhao Kui's testimony pointed in the same direction. More damning still, when the censorate searched the Marquis's study, they found a bundle of secret correspondence hidden inside a concealed compartment. The letters were between Pei Jingji and Liu Chengzong. They clearly recorded Liu Chengzong asking Pei Jingji to find money and make arrangements to restore his official standing. Once Liu Chengzong's name appeared in the evidence, the case ceased to be ordinary corruption. It became an attempt to overturn the consequences of a previous criminal judgment through bribery and private connections. The emperor despised disgraced officials secretly forming networks, especially when those networks involved a titled military man. The Court of Judicial Review did not dare delay. The interrogation continued for 3 days. During those 3 days I went nowhere. I remained at Qinghe Estate and listened to Shen Da's reports each day. Madam, Pei Jingji has confessed to diverting military funds. He claims he only took 10,000 taels, and that the remaining 5,000 were taken by Zhao Kui. Madam, Liu Ruyan insists she knew nothing about the money. She says every financial arrangement was between her father and the Marquis, and that she, as an unmarried woman, had no involvement. Madam, Liu Chengzong has been arrested in Shanxi. The emperor ordered him escorted back to the capital for trial. I listened without emotion. Liu Ruyan, you cannot escape. Even if you pretend you knew nothing about the money, the things you did after returning to the capital have already tied you to the case. I had not formally charged you over the attempt to drug Nian, but Granny Zhao's and Batao's confessions had been recorded at Shuntian Prefecture. The moment investigators looked, they would find them. Sure enough, on the 5th day, Shen Da brought new information. The 3 judicial offices had obtained the entire file from Shuntian Prefecture and added Liu Ruyan's plot against my daughter to the proceedings. She could no longer pretend to be innocent. On the 7th day, judgment was announced. Marquis Dingyuan, Pei Jingji, was found guilty of misappropriating military pay, forming factions for private gain, and indulging a mistress who had plotted to harm his legitimate daughter. For these combined offenses, the emperor personally approved the sentence. His title was stripped, he was imprisoned in the imperial jail, and he would be executed after autumn. Liu Chengzong was convicted of attempting to overturn his old case through bribery. His family property was confiscated, and he was sentenced to exile 3,000 li away. Liu Ruyan, the daughter of a convicted official, was also found to have hired others to harm a child. She was sentenced to lifelong servitude in the Imperial Music Bureau, with no right of redemption. The imperial decree shocked the entire capital. I sat at Qinghe Estate listening to the words of the judgment, tapping my fingers lightly on the table. Execution after autumn. Lifelong confinement in the Imperial Music Bureau. In my previous life, Zhaoer had died in the Lotus Pond, while Nian had been sold into that same institution and died at 7. In this life, I would let those people taste the fate they had given my children. Shen Da stood to one side and asked quietly, Madam, Liu Ruyan will enter the Imperial Music Bureau today and be punished according to law. Do you want to see? I looked toward the dark sky outside. It seemed about to rain. No, it would dirty my eyes. I stood. But have someone keep watch there. If she tries to kill herself, tell me. Shen Da bowed and withdrew. I went to the inner room. Nian was napping, while Zhao sat by the window reading. I sat across from him and gently touched his hair. Mother, will father really die? He asked softly. That will be decided by the emperor. Zhaoer, listen to mother. The crime your father committed is a grave offense punishable by confiscation of the family estate and extermination of the clan. His Majesty has already shown extraordinary mercy by punishing him alone. You and Nian will be safe because you belong to the Shen family now, not the Pei family. Do you understand? I looked at him seriously. Zhao nodded and lowered his eyes to the book again. but I noticed that the fingers gripping its pages had turned pale. I sighed inwardly. A child was still a child, however poor his father's character might be. The bond of blood could not disappear at once, but I could not become soft-hearted. I had to see this through to the end. That afternoon, another imperial decree arrived, this time praising Duke Angguo's household. The emperor commended father for raising his daughter well and placing justice above family ties, and bestowed silk, jewels, and other gifts. Father had all of them sent to Qinghe estate, saying they should belong to me. I looked at the imperial silk and precious ornaments. Father had naturally stood on my side, but Pei Jingji, would he regret anything in prison? Probably not. A man like him would never believe he had done anything wrong, even at death. Night fell. The capital's lamps shone as brightly as ever, but the once magnificent Marquis Dingyuan residence was completely dark. The white mourning banners at its gates snapped in the wind, and no one came out to take them down. Qinghe estate, by contrast, glowed with warm light. I ordered a good dinner and gave each child an extra bowl of sweet soup. "Mother, is today a special day?" Nian asked around a mouthful of food. "It is the day we can finally live in peace." I smiled and placed more food in her bowl. She did not really understand and simply continued eating. Zhao also showed the faintest hint of a smile. I lifted my tea and took a small sip. "Pei Jingji, Liu Ruyan, the first half of your game is over. For the second half, I will collect the debt in person." Outside, autumn rain finally began to fall, fine and steady, as though washing the capital clean after a great drama. On the third day after Pei Jingji was placed in the imperial prison, a jailer brought word that he had refused food and water, and asked only to see me once. At the time, I was sitting beneath the osmanthus tree in the rear courtyard of Qinghe estate, watching Nian chase a yellow butterfly. When Siki finished delivering the message, I lifted my tea and blew gently across the surface. "Madam, will you go?" she asked quietly. I set down the cup and watched Nian run until one of her braids came loose. A faint smile touched my lips. Yes, some account should be settled face to face. I asked the wet nurse to take Zhao and Nian inside and told Shen Da to prepare the carriage. Before leaving, I changed into a pale blue-white robe and wore only the jade hairpin my mother had left me. Sik followed behind, hesitating before speaking. "Madam, the imperial prison is a grim place. Why go in person? Couldn't Shen Da carry whatever message you have?" I shook my head. "There are things he will only understand if he hears them directly from me." The carriage crossed half the capital before stopping outside the imperial prison. Its walls were high and thick, their surface scarred by years of wind and rain. A jailer checked the token and papers Shen Da had prepared, bowed to me, and led us inside. The corridor was damp and dark. Chains scraped against stone from cells on both sides. The air was thick with the smell of mold and decay, sharp enough to tighten the throat. Sik covered her nose and mouth with a handkerchief. My expression did not change, and my steps remained steady. At the innermost solitary cell, the jailer stopped. "Madam Shen, the condemned prisoner is inside. Please speak quickly, I will wait outside." I nodded. He unlocked the chain on the cell door and withdrew. I stood outside for a moment before entering. Only one dim oil lamp burned inside. Pei Jingji sat against the wall. He still wore that black brocade robe, but it was so dirty that its original color was barely visible. His hair was tangled, his face covered in stubble, and his eyes had sunk deep into their sockets. In only a few days, he had become frighteningly thin. "You came," he said, slowly lifting his head. His voice was as rough as sandpaper. I stepped inside and stopped before him, looking down. "I heard you were refusing food because you wanted to see me. I am here. Say what you have to say." Pei Jingji pulled at the corner of his mouth as though trying to smile, but failed. "Shen Yunshu, you won. I admit defeat. Before I die, I want to ask you one thing. Why did you suddenly become like this? For 7 years, you never once spoke harshly to me. Why did everything change the moment Liu Ruyan returned?" "Because Liu Ruyan returned." I cut him off, my gaze calm. "I endured for 7 years, knowing the two of you remained devoted to each other. But on the day Liu Ruyan came back, I suddenly remembered what you would do to me in the future, and what would happen to Zhao and Nianer." Pei Jingji frowned. "The future? What nonsense are you talking about?" I slowly crouched until our eyes were level. The oil lamp threw half his face into light and half into shadow. "Pei Jingji, do you believe that people can have a previous life and a present one?" He froze. On the day Liu Ruyan returned to the capital, another set of memories suddenly appeared in my mind. Memories from my previous life. My voice was quiet, yet every word sounded unusually clear inside the narrow cell. In that life, Liu Ruyan also returned to the capital. You brought her into the Marquis's household. Then you accused me of disrespecting my elders, jealousy, and lack of virtue, and confined me to Qingqiu courtyard. Later, when she became pregnant, you feared I would stand in her way, so you had someone bring me a cup of poisoned wine. Pei Jingji's eyes widened. His body instinctively recoiled. You are lying. How could I ever? Let me finish. I reached out, gripped his chin, and forced him to look at me. After I died, Zhao was not yet 8. Liu Ruyan said he stood in the way of her own child, so she ordered servants to push him into the lotus pond behind the marquis's residence. Zhao could not swim. He thrashed in the pond for the time it takes half an incense stick to burn before drowning alive. His face whitened. And Nianer was only 5. Liu Ruyan had her sold into the Imperial Music Bureau. She survived there for less than 2 years before dying of illness. She was 7 years old. With every sentence, Pei Jingji's face grew paler. By the end, his entire body trembled. His lips moved but no sound came out. You say again and again that you love Liu Ruyan. But do you know what she did after your death in that previous life? She did not shed a single tear. She gathered up the remaining wealth of the Marquis's household and remarried someone else. My voice stayed level, but each word seemed to cut into him. Zhao and Nianer died without ever understanding why their father no longer wanted them. Pei Jingji suddenly broke down. He grabbed his hair in both hands and let out a hoarse, strangled sound. No. Impossible. You are lying to me. Shen Yunchu, you invented this story because you want revenge. Whether I invented it or not, you know your own heart. I rose and took a small jade pendant from my sleeve, holding it before his eyes. The tassel attached to it was worn with age. Shen had slipped it out of the Marquis's study during the confiscation a few days earlier. You recognize this, don't you? Liu Ruyan gave it to you years ago as a token of affection. You kept it hanging in your study every day for 7 years. The jade pendant I gave you, on the other hand, had long since been tossed into some forgotten corner. I lowered my hand. Pei Jingji, you never truly loved me. But I do not hate you for that. I hate myself for being blind enough to choose a man like you and, because of that choice, dragging my children into disaster. Pei Jingji stared at Liu Ruyan's token. Tears ran through the dust on his face in streaks. His mouth opened as if he wanted to speak, but only broken gasps came out. At last he managed a complete sentence, his voice trembling uncontrollably. I did not know. I truly did not know she would do that to Zhao and Nianer. I gave a cold laugh. You did not know. Of course you did not. Those are the only words you have left. But what good does it do whether you knew or not? Could it bring Zhao and Nianer back to life? I looked down at him. In this life I would never allow that day to come. That is why I struck first. Pei Jingji, everything that has happened to you now is the result of your own choices. Suddenly he lunged forward and grabbed the hem of my skirt. Yunchu, kill me yourself. I beg you. A man like me does not deserve to live. Kill me and avenge Zhao and Nianer with your own hands. I looked down at the man who had once been proud and commanding. Now he was like a dying dog, his face covered in tears, his eyes filled with despair and regret. I felt no softness at all. Kill you? I calmly freed skirt from his hand and stepped back. You are already condemned to death. You will be executed after autumn. Why should I dirty my hands? I looked at him one last time. Pei Jingji, I did not come today to kill you. I came so that you would understand why you are dying. From this day onward, you and I are strangers. After your death, I, Shen Yunchu, will not shed a single tear for you. Pei Jingji collapsed onto the floor and covered his face with both hands. His shoulders shook violently, and the only sound in the cell was his muffled sobbing. I turned toward the door. After 2 steps, I stopped without looking back. One more thing. Zhao and Nianer will both bear the surname Shen from now on. They have no remaining connection to the Pei family. When you reach the underworld, you need not concern yourself with them. His sobs became louder. I never turned around. Outside the imperial prison, the sunlight was painfully bright. I closed my eyes for a moment and drew a deep breath. Ziki hurried forward to support me. Madam, are you all right? I shook my head. I am fine. Let us go. The carriage left the prison and headed toward the city outskirts. Instead of returning to Qinghe Estate, I sent Shenda ahead with new orders. Go to the estate, bring Zhao and Nianer out and meet me at the Tenli Pavilion north of the city. Jik looked surprised. Madam, are we going far away? Yes, we are leaving the capital. I watched the streets slide backward beyond the carriage window, my voice calm. There is nothing here I still wish to hold on to. Zhao and Nian are young. They should not grow up in this place. I am taking them to Jiangnan. Sheik hesitated. But what about his grace? I left father a letter, he will understand. By the time the carriage stopped at the Tenli Pavilion, the sun was sinking in the west. Shenda had already arrived with Zhao Nian and the wet nurse. The moment Nian saw me, she broke free of the nurse's hand and ran over on her short legs. Mother, where are we going? She lifted her little face, eyes shining. I crouched and picked her up. To a place with many flowers. Would Nianer like that? Yes. She wrapped her arms around my neck and laughed. Zhao stood nearby, carrying a small bundle on his back, looking like a little grown-up. I freed one hand and stroked his head. Zhao, we are leaving the capital. Are you afraid? He straightened his small chest. No, wherever mother is, that is home. My nose stung, but I did not let my tears fall. Holding Nian and taking Zhao by the hand, I boarded a green canopied carriage. Shenda and the guards rode on both sides. CK and the wet nurse traveled in a second carriage behind us. Our small convoy slowly followed the official road leading south away from the capital. After about 2 hours, darkness had fully fallen. I had Shenda stop at a roadside post station for the night. Once the children were settled, I walked alone to a slow slope outside the station and looked back toward the capital. Only a faint scattering of distant lights remained visible. My past was there. Pei Jingji was there. Liu Ruyan was there. The ruins of the Marquis Dingyuan household were there, but all of it was already receding farther and farther behind me. Madam, the night is cold. Seek came over with a cloak and placed it around my shoulders. I pulled it close and said quietly, Sheik, do you think I was too ruthless? She shook her head immediately. You were not ruthless, madam. If you had not been, we would be the ones crying now. I smiled and said nothing more. Half a month later, we reached Yangnan. I had already arranged for a residence to be purchased outside Yangzhou. It was not large, but it was elegant, with courtyards at both the front and rear. Several osmanthus trees grew in the front courtyard, while a small vegetable garden filled part of the back. Zhao and Nian quickly came to love the place. Zhao studied at a nearby private school. Nian learned characters and embroidery from Shike and me. Our days became peaceful and steady. Shenda and the guards settled nearby. Most days, they watched over the shops and fields I had purchased, and from time to time they traveled out to collect rents. When I left the capital, I had kept Shener there to monitor what became of Pei Jingji and Liu Ruyan. Every half-month, he sent me a letter. The first letter said Pei Jingji had gone mad in prison. He spent his days muttering about previous lives and present lives. The jailers could make no sense of it, and assumed the suffering of imprisonment had broken his mind. The second letter said Liu Ruyan could not endure life in the Imperial Music Bureau. On the third day, she tried to kill herself by striking her head against a wall. She survived, then attempted suicide twice more. Each time the guards stopped her, she remained alive, but she was left in a terrible state. The third letter arrived when the season for autumn executions came. Pei Jingji had been executed at the execution grounds in the Western Market. The crowd had been so dense that the area was nearly impassable. Kneeling on the platform, he kept repeating 3 names, Yunchu, Zhaoer, Nianer. Then the executioner's blade fell and everything became quiet. Liu Chengzong died of illness during his journey into exile. Liu Ruyan remained in the Imperial Music Bureau. According to the letter, she had finally accepted her fate and no longer tried to die. After reading, I stood in the courtyard for a long time. Pei Jingji was dead. Liu Ruyan was living a life worse than death. Yet I did not feel the exhilaration I had once imagined. There was only a calm sense that the dust had finally settled. I walked beneath the osmanthus tree and broke off a small flowering twig. A few pale yellow petals fell into my palm, carrying a faint fragrance. Nian ran out of the house holding a drawing. Mother, look at the flower I drew. I took it from her. On the fine calligraphy paper was a crooked little osmanthus branch. Beside it were 2 simple figures, one holding the hand of the smaller one. This is mother, she said pointing, and this is me. Nian smiled until her eyes curved like little crescents. Zhao also came out, carrying a book. He stood under the veranda and called, Mother. Teacher praised me today. He said I learned quickly. I smiled and beckoned to them. Come here, both of you. The children ran to me and stood one on each side. The shadow of the osmanthus tree swayed across our bodies. I lifted my head and looked toward the northern sky. There was no capital here, no marquis residence, no blood-soaked past, only a vast high blue sky. In this life, Shen Yunchu had finally truly lived, with her children by her side. And you, Pei Jingji, walked slowly on the road to the Yellow Springs. In the next life, may you and I never meet again. Thank you for supporting Panda. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories. Now, let's begin story 2. My elder half-sister was terminally ill and did not have long to live, while my fiancé had just placed first in the imperial examination. She invited me to her residence, saying she wanted to entrust the children she would leave behind to me. After the meal, when I woke again, I found myself lying in my brother-in-law's bed. He slapped me repeatedly and cursed me for being vicious enough to drug him. My stepmother held my elder half-sister, who was devastated and in pain, and pointed at me as she called me shameless. I watched the three of them coldly as they put on their little performance. Fine, very fine. Then every last one of you can go die. My stepmother had cursed until her voice went hoarse, and my brother-in-law had beaten me enough as well. Only then did my elder half-sister pretend that her eyes were red with tears and take my hand. Ah, you, although you were born to a concubine, I have always treated you as my own younger sister and loved you dearly. I am terminally ill and do not have much longer to live. I had planned to ask you to care for my son and daughter after I died. I never imagined you would do something so shameless. How can you still face me after this? Now that things have come to this, the only choice is to cancel your engagement to your cousin. After I die, you will marry into the Marquis of Dingyuan's household as my husband's second wife. Lu Zhang, heir to the Marquis of Dingyuan, stood nearby and sneered. With her character and her birth, she thinks she is worthy of becoming the second wife of my household? I would not even take her as a concubine. He still held a grudge against me. 3 years earlier, he had come to my family to present betrothal gifts for my elder half-sister. After seeing me, however, he decided he wanted me to enter his household with her as his concubine. I refused him outright and told him I already had someone I loved, someone who would soon come to ask for my hand. Lu Zhang cursed me for not knowing what was good for me. He even went to my father and stepmother and tried to force them to agree. Fortunately, father found the whole thing too humiliating and refused. Not long afterward, my cousin Songhuai placed first in the imperial examination and came to ask for my hand in marriage. On the day the betrothal gifts were delivered, Lu Zhang deliberately came to mock me. Songhuai comes from a poor farming family. Even if he becomes an official, he will only be a poor official. If you marry him, you are destined to suffer your entire life. By the time you have spent years worrying about money and your beauty has faded, he will already have achieved rank and fame. Countless people will want to flatter him by offering him young, beautiful women. And what will you have left then? A woman's beauty depends on money, comfort, and being pampered. Ayu, all men under heaven are the same. Sooner or later you will understand. Marrying Songhuai is not even as good as becoming my concubine. At least my family has money and power. You would not have to suffer with me through those first 5 hard years. What he said was not entirely without reason, but I still had no intention of sparing his pride. Come back and say that after you pass the examinations on your own. If your family had not inherited its title for generations, I doubt you could even pass the lowest qualifying examination. He was so furious that he charged at me to hit me. I turned aside, hooked his ankle with my foot and sent him sprawling on his back in the courtyard. I laughed until I could barely stand. He lost every shred of dignity and nearly went mad with rage. That was how our feud truly began. Now I looked at the disgust and contempt in Lu Zhang's eyes and heard my own voice come out slow and cold. I will not become his second wife. Becoming his concubine is even more impossible. My stepmother clenched her handkerchief. Do you really think you still have a choice? After what happened today, do you think Songhuai will still marry you? Is the Marquis' household not better than the Song family? Besides, your sister's son and daughter will be your support for the rest of your life. Lu Zhang snorted. You truly do not know what is good for you. My elder half-sister ordered a servant to bring over a bowl of medicine meant to make me infertile. In a gentle voice she advised me, Ayu, as long as you drink this, you will become the second wife of the Marquis' household after I am gone. As for your affair with your brother-in-law before marriage, I can let it go and promise not to pursue the matter. I climbed out of bed and calmly put my clothes back on as if no one else were in the room. Lu Zhang's gaze drifted toward me before he could stop himself. My sister's face immediately darkened, and he hurriedly turned his head away. My body felt perfectly normal. It was almost laughable. On one hand, they wanted to ruin me and force me to spend the rest of my life working like an ox for her children. On the other, they were terrified that her husband might actually have touched me. Did they not find this exhausting? Once I had finished dressing, I looked at all 3 of them. First, I am the fiancé of Songhuai, the new top scholar of the imperial examination and a Hanlin Academy scholar. Second, it was only after you brought me here that my chastity was compromised. Third, I will beat the grievance drum at the imperial court and accuse Lu Zhang of forcing himself on me. Even if I die doing it, I will not let any of you live in peace. All 3 of their expressions changed at once. Clearly, they had never expected me to be this difficult to control. In a sense, I had to thank Songhuai for living up to everyone's expectations. He had risen from a poor family and taken first place in the imperial examination in one leap. If I had been nothing more than an ordinary concubine-born daughter, none of them would have had anything to fear. No matter how fiercely I resisted, they could simply have forced that infertility medicine down my throat. I would have had no one to back me. But now I happened to be Song Huai's fiancé. Our marriage contract had already been officially certified by the authorities, and Song Huai was now a Hanlin Academy scholar, a rising figure at court, and even regarded as a future candidate for the post of Grand Secretary. No matter how unwilling these people were to back down, they had no choice but to be cautious. If I truly died in order to bring an accusation, Liu Zhang might not only lose his position as heir, he could also be dragged into a legal case. The entire Marquis of Dingyuan's household would become a laughingstock, despised by society. My sister and stepmother told Liu Zhang to leave first. The two women stayed behind to persuade me. As soon as the door closed, tears rolled down my sister's cheeks. Ah, I truly have no other way. I know I treated you badly when we still lived together at home, but there are only two sisters in our family. You are the only person I can rely on. My children are your own niece and nephew. She cried until her face was covered in tears and mucus. My stepmother stood beside her, covering her face and sobbing too. Today's matter was my fault, my stepmother said. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Do not blame your sister. As long as you agree to marry into the Marquis's household as the second wife, I will give you anything you want. I looked at her and asked plainly, it is true that I am the only concubine-born daughter in this household, but your maternal family has plenty of nieces. Why must it be me? I have never been close to either of you, and you yourselves know I cannot be trusted. Otherwise, you would never have thought of controlling me by forcing me to drink infertility medicine. My sister cried as she said, it is your brother-in-law. He insists on having you. He has wanted you for a long time. If there were any other choice, I would not want that person to be you either. I exposed her without mercy. Of course you want it to be me. You cannot stand the thought that I am about to marry Song Huai. Your husband is an incompetent wastrel who spends his days drowning in wine and women. My fiancé, on the other hand, is the new top scholar of the imperial examination, young and talented, with a very real chance of entering the Grand Secretariat someday. You are the one person who cannot bear to see me live well. You are afraid that a concubine-born daughter like me might one day live a better life than you. For 16 years, you have always stood above me, bullied me, and mocked me. How could you accept that one day I might surpass you? And not just you. Your mother is the same. The two of you are made from the same vile mold. My sister's face slowly turned deathly white. Her lips trembled, and it took her a long time to force out a sentence. You were always obedient and weak before. Was all of that an act? Was it not precisely because I seemed obedient and weak that you dared to use such a filthy scheme to force me? My sister said nothing, neither did my stepmother. After a long silence, I stared at the bowl of medicine that had already gone cold on the table. You want me to drink infertility medicine because you think that if I can never bear children of my own, I will treat yours as if they were mine. But have you ever considered this? Your husband's interest in me is nothing more than temporary possessiveness, with his habit of chasing the new and discarding the old. How many days do you think he would favor me after I entered his household? By then his concubines, bedchamber maids, and mistresses outside the household will all be bearing children. If the mothers of those children are scheming, even staying on guard would not be enough to protect against them all. When that time comes, do you think your children will still have a path to survival? Terror filled my sister's eyes and spread across her entire face. I pressed her in a cold voice. You are willing to harm me for the sake of your children. Do you really think other mothers would not kill your children for the sake of their own children's prospects and titles? My sister's legs gave way, and she collapsed to the floor. My stepmother hurried to catch her. I reminded them slowly, why not solve the problem once and for all? Make Liu Zhang incapable of fathering any more children. Would that not eliminate every future threat? If he can never have another child, your son's title, as well as your daughter's future, will be firmly secured. Surely I do not need to teach you that scarcity makes things precious. The door opened again. Liu Zhang stood outside with a smug, self-assured expression. The way he looked at me was no different from the way someone might look at a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, vicious and pleased with himself. My sister spoke first. Let today's matter end here. In any case, you never actually touched her. I cannot persuade her. If we push this further and she truly dies to make an accusation, forget keeping your title as heir. You may even end up entangled in a legal case. What? How can we simply let it go? I walked straight up to Liu Zhang and slapped him several times in succession. Even after that, my anger had not eased. I pulled the hairpin from my hair and drove it through his palm. You despicable scoundrel. You will not die a peaceful death. He screamed in agony and shouted for the servants to seize me and beat me to death with sticks on the spot. My sister roared, "Enough. Do you want to call everyone over so the entire household can watch this farce?" I immediately left the Marquis's estate and climbed into the carriage to return home. My stepmother climbed in after me. She looked at me and said, "You did not actually lose anything. You have already vented your anger. Surely you are not still holding a grudge?" I smiled and shook my head, deliberately putting her at ease. "Of course not. If this spreads, the one who ends up suffering will still be me. I am going to marry Songhua and become the wife of the top scholar. How could I destroy my own future?" My stepmother thought for a moment, decided it made sense, and finally relaxed. But of course I held a grudge. Not one of them was going to live in peace. After we returned home, my stepmother remained restless because she was worried about my sister. She told father that she wanted to stay at the Marquis's estate for a while so she could care for her. As soon as she left, I drugged father with infertility medicine. Having no son had always been father's deepest worry. Recently, he had taken another concubine, a female physician. One day, as I passed her courtyard, I saw a young maid decocting medicine intended to support a pregnancy. For half a month, while my stepmother was away, father spent every night in that concubine's rooms. Yet there was still no sign of pregnancy. Father was not anxious. He had grown used to disappointment. His concubine, however, was anxious. She knew there was nothing wrong with her own body. If she could to conceive, the problem could only be father. My stepmother still had not returned when my sister's illness grew worse by the day. She could not even make it to the end of the month before dying of her disease. During the funeral, I slipped the infertility drug into Liu Zhang's wine. When he collapsed unconscious, the Marquis's household called a physician. The examination revealed that he had been drugged and could no longer father children. The entire household fell into chaos. In the end, the investigation pointed to my dead sister as the person who had administered the drug, but she was already dead. No matter how unwilling Liu Zhang was to accept it, he had no choice but to do so. For the sake of his son and daughter's reputation, he could only swallow his anger. Still unwilling to let the matter go, he pointed at my stepmother and demanded, "You have been staying in our household this whole time. Were you the one who urged her to do it?" Father's eyelid twitched. My stepmother argued until her mouth went dry, and father deliberately protected her. Liu Zhang had no choice but to let the matter drop, but the people who were bound to find out still did. That included father's physician concubine. Worried that her own medical skill might not be sufficient, she secretly invited the best physician in the capital to examine father. The result was the same. Father had also been rendered infertile by a drug. He flew into a rage so violent that he coughed up blood. He did not even bother to investigate. Because my sister had supposedly drugged Liu Zhang, father immediately assumed my stepmother had been responsible for his condition too. My stepmother was asleep when a male servant dragged her out of bed and pinned her to the floor. Father emerged with a dark expression. She still did not understand what was happening. "My lord, what are you doing?" Father slapped her again and again as he cursed her. I stepped out from behind him and said, "Madam, how could you bear to give father a drug that would end his bloodline? Your heart is truly vicious." My stepmother desperately denied it and cried that she had been wrong. Father, disgusted, ordered the servants to throw her into the well in the courtyard and staged the scene as a drowning. Until the moment she died, my stepmother kept screaming, "No, it was not me. I did not do it." She wanted to say that I was the one responsible, but father had already turned his back and walked away. He never heard her. Before long, she stopped breathing. Only then did some of the rage in my heart finally ease. My stepmother's funeral was extremely simple. Father refused to attend from beginning to end. Liu Zhang came too. He assumed father had killed my stepmother in order to give him an explanation. He was so moved that every other word out of his mouth was father-in-law. Songhua also attended. Liu Zhang's hand was still wrapped in bandages. When he saw me, his expression became complicated. The moment he saw me walk toward Songhua, however, his face darkened and the jealousy in his eyes grew stronger. Songhua pulled me into a deserted corner. His face was grim, and a chill seemed to radiate from him. A bad feeling rose in my heart. After making sure no one was nearby, he stared at me and asked in a low voice, "What happened at the Marquis's estate half a month ago?" My heart tightened. Even if I died, I could not admit anything. Once I admitted to such a matter, even if there truly had been no sexual relationship, it would be almost impossible to explain myself clearly afterward. Songhua had always said he loved me and would marry no one but me in this life, but I could not gamble on that promise. I could not afford even the slightest hesitation. I could handle this myself. Once Liu Zhang was dead, no one else would know what had happened. So I smiled at Song Huai. Cousin, nothing happened. What could possibly have happened? Song Huai suddenly said, Liu Zhang claims that you and he were intimate as husband and wife. He says you drugged him and climbed into his bed. I froze, my eyes immediately filled with tears. Cousin, you actually believe something like that? You came to question me because of his words? You know perfectly well that Liu Zhang has always had improper intentions toward me. Why would you believe him? The tension in Song Huai's face eased slightly, but he was still not completely convinced. Liu Zhang said, there is a small black mole on your chest. I wiped my tears carelessly. A plan flashed through my mind. Father now had only one daughter left, me. Everyone understood that scarcity makes things precious. Since he could no longer have another child, he had begun to value his only daughter far more than before. Over the past few days, he had even been thinking of ways to make Song Huai willingly marry into our family as a resident son-in-law. Once I had children, father would devote himself to raising and educating them, so our family line would not die out. Was this not the perfect opportunity delivered straight to my door? I looked at Song Huai, who had just treated me so coldly, and questioned him through tears. How difficult is it to learn whether I have such a mole? You could ask an older female cousin of mine, or any maid who has attended me closely, they would know. Cousin, years ago my mother sold herself into this household as a concubine for the sake of your family. My stepmother tormented her to death, but my mother's sacrifice opened a path for your future. Because of her, you were able to become father's student, live in this residence, and focus on your studies in peace. Now that you have placed first in the imperial examination, if you despise me for being only a concubine-born daughter and want to marry someone else, then simply break the engagement. Why say such disgusting things just to humiliate me? Still crying, I ran out in full view of everyone. I went straight to Liu Zhang and slapped him hard several times. He clutched his stunned and grimacing in pain. What are you doing, you mad woman? I snatched the sword from a guard's waist and swung it straight at him. I will kill you. You dare destroy my reputation and try to drive me to death? Then today I will drag you down with me. My blade sliced through more than half of his sleeve. Terrified, Liu Zhang jumped, tumbled, and scrambled away on all fours. She is insane. This wretched girl has truly gone insane. Song Huai tried to grab me. I violently shook off his hand and shouted, since everyone is here today, let us make everything clear in front of them. Song Huai, now that you have placed first in the imperial examination, if you do not want to marry me, then break the engagement. I may be a concubine-born daughter, but I am still a daughter of a marquis' household. My father is still an honored noble in the capital. Do you think I am afraid I cannot find a husband? At worst, I will cut off my hair and become a nun. I will never allow you people to smear my name and insult my chastity like this. Father hurried over, completely confused. What happened? Still crying, I repeated everything Song Huai had just asked me. Father stamped his foot in fury. He pointed at Liu Zhang, who was sitting on the ground with his soul nearly scared out of him, and cursed. Shameless bastard! Before you even married my elder daughter, you were already coveting her younger sister. My elder daughter has barely passed the first week after death, and you are already slandering my younger daughter's chastity. Are you trying to destroy her reputation so you can force her to marry into your household and fill the vacancy left by her sister? You cannot father children anymore, but my daughter still can. You already have a son, so you are in no hurry. I am the one with no son. I am still waiting for Ayu to bear a boy who can continue my family line. You damn jinx! Then he turned towards Song Huai, looking even more heartbroken. And you, I have had no son all these years, so I raised and taught you as if you were my own. Now that you have achieved success, you suddenly look down on my household and want to marry into a more powerful family. So you use an accusation without proof to slander my daughter, hoping both to break the engagement and avoid being called ungrateful. Do you think such a convenient arrangement exists in this world? Song Huai had not expected me to take the matter this far. He was smarter than Liu Zhang. Instead of arguing, he immediately knelt and admitted fault. Without uncle's teaching, there would be no Song Huai today. How could I possibly repay kindness with betrayal? Ayu is also my own cousin. How could I truly think of breaking our engagement? I was wrong. I should not have listened to rumors and doubted her. I spoke softly from behind father. Father looked deeply at me and understood at once. Ayu is now my only daughter. If you are sincere toward her, then marry into my family and become my resident son-in-law. Continue the family line for me. Countless eyes immediately turned toward Song Huai. He looked as though he were sitting on hot coals. Of course he did not want to marry into his wife's family. He had not struggled all the way to this point, just to let his future children bear another family's name. He wanted to bring honor to his own ancestors. But he also knew perfectly well that everything he possessed today had come through father's support. If he refused, he would be branded an ungrateful man who repaid kindness with betrayal. His official career would effectively be over, his colleagues would despise him, and even the emperor would question his character. From then on, forget entering the Grand Secretariat. He would not even be accepted among the respected upright officials. Songhui took several deep breaths, then kowtowed. Without uncle, there would be no Songhui. Uncle has no son, so from now on, this son-in-law of yours will be your son. I agree to marry into the family. Only then did father finally breathe in relief. As for Liu Zhang, for the sake of his own reputation, and that of the marquise's household, he did not dare mention what had happened that day again. In front of everyone, he could only lower his head and admit fault. One of my servants got drunk and spoke nonsense, damaging the second young lady's reputation. When I return home, I will certainly punish him severely. With tears shining in my eyes, I said, a woman's reputation is precious. One careless sentence can destroy her entire life. Father, for the sake of my name, perhaps we should have someone examine me. That way cousin can also feel at ease. Songhuai's face went deathly pale. Cousin, I believe you. I could not be bothered with him. In the end, I still had an experienced matron examine me. Once she confirmed that I was still a virgin, Songhuai's expression finally improved. Even the smile he gave me became more sincere. I knew it. Those words were nothing but baseless rumors. A chill passed through my heart. How fortunate that I had never truly loved him. Otherwise, how painful would that moment have been? My wedding date with Songhui was soon set. My good friend Susu came to visit and was delighted for me. At least he did not betray you. Ah, you did not choose the wrong man. Actually, I had chosen the wrong man. I simply did not have a better option for the moment. When I asked about her own marriage, Susu immediately burst into tears. She was the legitimate daughter of a count's household, but she had been lost outside the family as a child, and was not found until she was 5 or 6. By then, there was no longer a place for her at home. The false daughter who had taken her place had already monopolized the love of her parents and brothers. That girl was prettier than Susu's, spoke sweetly, and knew even better how to please everyone around her. The real daughter had returned only to find that an impostor had completely taken her place. Gradually, even the treatment she received in the count's residence became worse than that of a maid. Father wants to marry me to Lord Lin as his second wife. My eyes widened. Lord Lin is older than my own father. Tears streamed down Susu's face. They need Lord Lin's help to send Juhan into the Eastern Palace as a secondary consort. But in their hearts, she is the one they truly regard as their own flesh and blood daughter. I paced anxiously around the room. Then an idea flashed through my mind. I said to Susu, my brother-in-law Liu Zhang was drugged by my sister before she died. He can no longer father children, but the Marquis' household has enormous wealth and an inherited title. Their family has few descendants, and there are no troublesome matters in the inner household to exhaust you. The only real eyesore is that fool Liu Zhang. Still, you are beautiful. He might very well be attracted to you. When you finally grow tired of him, wait a few years and quietly poison him. First, drug him until he is barely alive. After that, there would be nothing stopping you from becoming pregnant by another man. When Liu Zhang dies, you can give birth to a posthumous child, and the entire Marquis' household will fall under your control. The only problem is that the method of getting you married to him may not be very honorable. I am afraid it could damage your reputation. Susu laughed bitterly. Ah, what reputation? No matter how terrible Liu Zhang is, he is still better than Lord Lin, who is nearly old enough to be my grandfather. I had already planned to attend your wedding, return home afterward, buy a packet of arsenic, and poison my entire family to death. But if there is still a road to survival, who truly wants to die? Whatever happens, I should at least try once. My heart ached, and I embraced her. I arranged to meet Liu Zhang at a tea house. Susu asked, will he really come? He definitely will. Liu Zhang has suffered too many losses at my hands. He will come. Men like him are base to the bone, and beneath it all, they are cowards. Liu Zhang arrived quickly, but he did not see me. Inside the room, incense had already been burned that would cloud a person's judgment. When the effect had nearly reached its peak, he grew so hot that he pushed open the door. At that exact moment, Susu, dressed and made up beautifully, happened to pass outside. Liu Zhang grabbed her and lowered his head to kiss her. Susu slapped him furiously, burst into tears and ran away. There were many people nearby, everyone saw it. By the time Liu Zhang regained his senses, news had already spread that Susu had jumped into the river to kill herself. I had timed everything carefully and arranged for a maid to rescue her. The scandal quickly became common knowledge. The Lin and Zhu families backed out of the marriage plans, while the Count of Wenyang's household pressured Liu Zhang to give them an explanation. Otherwise, they threatened to take the matter before the emperor. No matter how hard Liu Zhang tried, he could not explain his way out of it. He kept screaming that I had framed him, but because he had previously caused trouble at my stepmother's mourning hall, no one believed him anymore. As if falsely accusing his wife's younger sister once had not been enough, now he was doing it a second time. How could there be such a shameless brother-in-law in the world? Curses against him spread everywhere. The scandal even alarmed the elders of the Liu clan. Liu Zhang had no way out, he could only accept the marriage. Because Susu was the injured party, the Count of Wenyang seized the opportunity to force Liu Zhang to pay a large sum in compensation. The Count intended to use that money as dowry for the false daughter, Zhu Han. This time, however, with the marriage itself giving Susu leverage, her attitude became extremely firm. She created an enormous uproar and took back all the compensation money Liu Zhang had paid. I was delighted for her. Because I had to observe 3 years of mourning for my stepmother, my own wedding had to be postponed for 3 years. Susu's marriage therefore took place before mine. Liu Zhang hated me so deeply that he looked as though he wanted to tear me apart with his teeth. I could not help laughing. If he had not still possessed some use, if he had not been able to rescue my best friend from a living hell, I would already have broken his legs and thrown him into a male brothel. For now, I would let him live a few more years. Once Susu had firmly established herself in the Marquis's household, that would be the day he died. Song Huai's official appointment was about to be announced. The Minister of Personnel drank with father and discreetly sounded out his wishes. Song Huai had been born a commoner and had no family backing. Everyone knew he was father's future son-in-law, and also the student fathers had personally cultivated. Father brought the matter to me and asked what I thought. If he is sent outside the capital, his family has produced no officials for generations and he has no one to protect him. It is entirely possible he could die at his post. But if he survives and returns, he can be transferred back to the capital 3 years later and go straight into a 5th-rank post. His prospects would be extraordinary. If he stays in the capital, things will be safer, but his promotions will come more slowly. Father could make a complete mess of household affairs, but in officialdom he was extraordinarily shrewd. He had survived countless rounds of court struggle without harm. Officials serving beside him had been executed, exiled, or demoted in group after group, yet father remained firmly in place. He was not truly asking because he did not know what to do. He was testing me. I smiled. Send cousin to the most dangerous and impoverished place possible. Let him be tempered there. He has now taken first place in the imperial examination after spending more than 20 years being trampled under other people's feet. In a single leap, his fate has changed. The pride in his heart has grown alongside the inferiority complex he accumulated over all those years. Let him suffer outside the capital for a few years. Let hardship temper his character, make him understand his true position and status, and make him remember that you are his benefactor. Without your support, he is nothing. If you keep him in the capital, his status as the top examination scholar and your future son-in-law will surround him with flattery every day. In time it will ruin him. He will become the kind of man who fawns on those above him and bullies those beneath him. That would bring our family more harm than benefit. If he truly dies at his post, then all it proves is that he failed the test you set for him. When that happens, you can simply find me another husband. Father listened and burst into delighted laughter. If only you had been born a son, I was afraid you would be foolish enough to hand our entire family fortune over to your cousin. Fortunately, you are not stupid. 10 days later, Song Huai's appointment order arrived. The moment he read it, his vision darkened and he collapsed to the ground. Ignoring everyone calling after him, he went pale, staggered to his feet, and rushed to our residence to find father. I stopped him before he could reach father. Cousin, father has arranged everything for you. You only need to stay there for 3 years and build a record of achievement. When you return to the capital 3 years from now, you will go straight into a 5th-rank post. This is an opportunity countless people beg for and never receive. Song Huai exploded in anger. Do you know how many officials have gone to that place and died in office? Ah, you, what good does my death do you? We are the people closest to one another. Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten what your mother, my aunt, told you before she died? Have you forgotten that you promised her you would protect of my future in her place and care for me for the rest of your life? Have you forgotten all of it? I hid the coldness in my eyes. I have not forgotten. From the time my mother died when I was 9, I gave you my entire monthly allowance, so you would have money to study. My stepmother controlled expenses strictly, and I was only a concubine-born daughter. There were times when, because I was worried about you, I even pawned the winter clothes allotted to me just to give you money. He cut me off impatiently. Why are you bringing up those things? We are talking about my appointment now. You are now the Marquis' only daughter. As long as you open your mouth and beg him, he will certainly find a way to keep me in the capital. I cannot go there. I will die, I answered slowly, one word at a time. Cousin, I have already done everything I could for you. I owe you nothing. Yet you have treated all of it as something you were entitled to receive. When Liu Zhang tried to destroy my reputation, you came to question me too. Pack your luggage and prepare to leave. You will not die. I will ask father to send secret guards to protect you. Songwai took several deep breaths. Looking utterly distraught, he shook his head at me. I am truly disappointed in you. And not just me. If your late mother knew what you are doing now, she would be deeply disappointed too. Do not forget that the blood of the Song family runs through you. My aunt was only a servant purchased by this household. Do you really think you are the master here? In their eyes, you are nothing more than a servant as well. You have forgotten your roots. You have forgotten that we are the people closest to one another in this world. You have forgotten that the Song family is your true home. My aunt will never forgive you. With that, he turned and stormed away. Father entered the palace and requested an imperial decree allowing me to marry without completing the mourning period for my stepmother. The emperor sympathized with him. Father had only one daughter left, while his future son-in-law was about to depart for a remote and desolate post with no certainty that he would return alive. The emperor readily agreed. Songhuai continued to treat me coldly. As if to punish me, he even refused to consummate the marriage on our wedding night. He said resentfully, "You and your father want a child to continue your family line, but I refuse to give you one. Let us see how you manage to have a child. If I die at my post, your family can wait for its bloodline to end with you." I sighed and could not be bothered with him. I simply climbed into bed and went to sleep. It was precisely because I knew he thought this way that I had told father to petition the emperor for permission for us to marry during the mourning period. The day after the wedding, Songhuai had to leave for his distant post. Before departing, he looked at his meager bundle of luggage and forced himself to suppress his anger. Your father now has only you left as his daughter. I am about to travel to my new post, yet you did not think to prepare several more sets of clothes for me or give me additional silver. I waved a hand. Go ask father yourself. His face turned red. How am I supposed to open my mouth and ask him for something like that? I sneered and slammed the door shut. Did he think living off his wife's family was so easy? I had humiliated him, but there was nothing he could do about it. He could only leave. It was not until he was already on the road that he discovered I had not even sent the secret guards I had promised him. He was so furious that he was about to turn back and argue with me, but when he looked behind him, the gates of our residence were already tightly shut. He hated me enough to want me dead, yet there was nothing he could do. That very night, father and I began selecting a suitable man to father my child. We settled on Mo Huizhi, a deputy general of the Jinwu Imperial Guard. He was breathtakingly handsome and highly skilled in martial arts, but very poor. On top of that, his stepmother and legitimate elder brother suppressed him. Poor was good. For a young man who looked like that, being poor was perfect. Being bullied by his own household meant he had no powerful backing. That was even better. Su helped me have him tied up and taken to a secluded residence, where he was given a substantial amount of drugs. Mo Huizhi glared at me. Release me at once. Do you think the Mo family can be pushed around so easily? I patted his cheek lightly. From now on, I will make sure you have meat at every meal. After one night, once I had a taste, I did not want to stop. I casually tossed him a stack of banknotes and had him driven out of the residence. That same night, while I was sleeping soundly, a cold longsword rested against my throat. My eyes flew open. How did you find this place? He replied coldly. If I want to find someone, I naturally can. I immediately raised both hands. I will take responsibility. He was so angry he could barely contain himself. Do you think I do not know you already have a husband who married into your family? A thought flashed through my head. Songhuai might die outside the capital any day now. My dear, you are my man. He looked so embarrassed he wanted to die. Wasn't I his woman too? I gently pushed the sword aside, wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him. It does not matter. We will have a second time very soon. 3 months later, I began suffering from morning sickness. By the Lantern Festival, I gave birth to a plump, fair-skinned baby boy. Father was beside himself with joy. Mo Huaiji was equally beside himself with joy. He was a concubine-born son of a duke's household. Reaching his current position through his own ability had not been easy. Mo Huaiji said, "If only for this boy, I will work hard and win a future for you and our son." Before long, news arrived that the stepmother and legitimate elder brother who had once suppressed him had both died sudden and unnatural deaths. Mo Huaiji became the new heir. I asked in disbelief. "Is this what you meant by working hard?" He held the baby in his arms, soothing him, and replied calmly, "Scarcity makes things precious. My father had only 2 sons in total, and my elder brother was a complete bastard. I do not know how many things he did with such disregard for human life. Father hated him to the bone. Even if he knew I was behind it, he would still protect me." Mo Huaiji looked at me and smiled with extraordinary gentleness. Why are you so surprised? I learned it all from you." Cold sweat immediately broke out across my back. What on earth had I gotten mixed up with? A year later, Mo Huaiji was sent to the frontier to gain experience and lead troops in battle. I went with him, although publicly I claimed I was traveling to find Song Huai. Meanwhile, largely ignored, Song Huai was still alive. 2 years later, Song Huai received orders transferring him back to the capital. Perhaps resentment had driven him to stake everything on success. Not only had he survived, he had built an impressive record of achievement. Mo Huaiji and I returned as well. This time I brought with me a pair of boy and girl twins. After entering the palace to receive his reward, Song Huai returned to our residence without expression, burning with resentment and determined to wipe away his humiliation. He went straight to my courtyard. It was rather strange. He did not seem to hate father. Why did he hate me so much? At least I had once treated him well. Was it merely because I had refused to treat him well forever? Song Huai shoved open the door and lifted the hem of his official robe as he stepped inside. He had barely managed a cold laugh before he saw the oldest child in my arms and the 2 babies in the cradle, crying for milk. He froze where he stood, utterly stunned. Then he went mad. He drew his blade and tried to cut me down. "Ayu, what have you done? I will kill you, will kill you!" Father had long predicted something like this might happen, so he had stationed guards around me in advance. Song Huai was quickly restrained. I smiled at him. "Why are you so angry? Do you not keep women outside as well?" His fury vanished at once. Then he said, "But I never let any of them become pregnant. Was that really by choice?" After our wedding ceremony, he had refused to consummate the marriage with me, so I had slipped infertility medicine into his tea. Otherwise, his children would probably have been running all over the place by now. "Cousin, for the sake of your career, you will wear this green hat whether you want to or not. Everyone knows these children are yours. You do not want a scandal like this attached to your name, do you? Besides, right now you are only an official, while father is a second-rank senior official. It is true that your career is flourishing at the moment, but you understand better than I do how difficult it becomes to climb even one more rank in officialdom. What do you actually possess now? Do you have money? Forget 3 generations. Even 5 generations of your family were dirt poor. If your family had not sold my mother all those years ago, could you possibly have reached where you are today? Every year you must offer gifts to your superiors. Charcoal in winter and ice in summer. Where do you get the silver for all of that? These past few years, if father had not regularly sent you banknotes, you would have died long ago. Would you still enjoy the prestige you have today?" Song Huai could no longer say a word. I poured myself a cup of tea, sat down and lightly kicked his face with the toe of my shoe. "Since you married into our family as a resident son-in-law, you need to understand what that position means. You eat and drink at our family's expense, so behave yourself and be an obedient dog for our household. Letting you be their father for free is already showing you plenty of respect. You hate me? Then work hard and climb higher. When you finally climb above father, you can stand up straight and speak to me." Song Huai's eyes were bloodshot. "Chen Yu, how did you become like this? Where did the kind, virtuous, gentle Chen Yu from before go? How can you face my aunt after what you have become?" My smile disappeared. I slapped him hard across the face. "The old Chen Yu is dead. She should have died a long time ago." Father had never cared much for romantic love. To him, all women were the same. When he was young, he had wanted only to climb higher. He wanted to become an official, then a high-ranking official. His only requirement of my stepmother was that she keep the inner household stable. His only requirement of my mother was that she know her place and cause no trouble. In father's mind, hierarchy was absolute, and the distinction between legitimate and concubine-born children was perfectly clear. He had never been harsh toward either me or my mother. Whatever mother and I were entitled to receive, he provided in full. My mother and I should have been able to live quite comfortably. Yet my childhood was miserable, because mother gave all the money she had to my maternal uncle's family. She used to tell me, "Your uncle's family is pitiful. Our life is already good enough." Was it really? I might have been a concubine-born daughter, but I was entitled to proper clothes and regular allotments. Yet I lived with less dignity than Songhuai because mother handed all of it to my uncle's family. When I was little, Songhuai ate better than I did, and dressed better than I did. Standing beside him, I looked no different from his maid. Because father had given instructions, my stepmother considered it beneath her to mistreat mother and me over our basic provisions. Only much later did I understand that she had simply been watching a spectacle. She watched mother act foolishly. She watched mother deprive her own daughter for the sake of her younger brother's family. Even as mother lay dying, she begged me to follow the same old road and continue supporting my uncle's family. When did I finally wake up? After mother died, father placed me under my stepmother's care. My stepmother had only one daughter, my elder half-sister. She was the wife he had married in his youth, the woman who had shared his earliest years of poverty. Her maternal relatives were many times worse than uncle's family. By then, my stepmother had already received an honored title from the imperial court. Yet when one of her nieces from her natal family stole a hairpin from my sister, my stepmother still stormed over and started a fight. When her shameless sister-in-law tried to dismiss the matter by saying children were merely playing, my stepmother cursed and struck both her sister-in-law and her own elder brother. She protected my sister fiercely. She never allowed her daughter to suffer the slightest grievance for anyone. When she noticed my bewildered expression, she said with contempt, "Do you think your mother only harmed you while she was alive? That stupid woman died, yet her ghost still clings to you. She even has you pawning your clothes for your cousin. You receive only 4 sets of clothing per season. If you pawn them all, what will you wear? Why not let the cold freeze you senseless once and for all? What is the point of people like you living? Chen Yu, do you truly think of yourself as a person?" I grew up beneath my stepmother's repeated mockery and cutting sarcasm. Every word crashed like thunder in my ears and jolted me awake. I even came to feel that mother had deserved to die. I began imitating my stepmother and learning from her. Within 6 years I had learned all of her ruthlessness, sharpness, and selfishness. It was exhilarating. For the first time, I understood how easy life could be when I lived for myself alone. Father personally raised all 3 of my children. By then he held enormous authority, and his official career had reached its limit. So he began craving the happiness of grandchildren gathered around him. The 3 children born to 2 black-hearted people like Mo Huaiji and me were each as cunning as little demons. They learned how to perform and pretend while they were still very young. Every day they coaxed father until his eyes narrowed with laughter. No matter how unwilling Songhuai was, he still had to acknowledge the 3 children for the sake of his career. He spent nearly all his time at government offices or in his study. Father said that Songhuai now looked exactly as he himself had when he was young. In truth, Songhuai was slightly more capable than father. After all, he had won first place in the imperial examination through his own ability. Father's examination ranking in his youth had never been that high. Father looked at me meaningfully. Songhuai is talented. By provoking him this way, you truly have stirred up his stubborn drive and forced him to keep climbing. Because he was born poor, even after achieving fame and rank, he does not dare relax for a single moment. But this blade, are you truly certain you can keep it under control? With my support, he will rise higher than I ever did. The Chen family can advance another level with him, but once he reaches enough power, the first person he will want to kill is you. After you, he will come for the entire Chen family. I smiled and pinched one child's cheek. Songhuai is a civil official. Mo Huaiji is a military commander. As soon as Songhuai returned to the capital, father used his connections to have Mo Huaiji sent to the frontier. Those 3 children were the humiliation that drove Songhuai to climb without stopping, but they were also the motivation pushing Mo Huaiji to win military merit. By the time Songhuai held immense civil authority, Mo Huaiji would also have become one of the most powerful officials in the realm. The 2 men would restrain one another. The only party that could profit from both sides was the Chen family. Was that not father's true intention when he chose Mo Huaiji in the first place? Father laughed loudly and patted my shoulder. My daughter truly is like me. The highest level of acting is to perform so deeply that even you begin to believe your own role. In the years that followed, father treated Songhuai as if he were his biological son. He kept Songhuai beside him, personally teaching him through both words and example, and poured all his effort into cultivating him. My maternal uncle was a gambling addict who frequently drank himself into a stupor. As for Songhuai, my uncle either beat him or cursed him. Yet Songhuai had never lacked motherly love in his life. He had been fortunate. His own mother loved him. My mother loved him too. I could sense the complicated feelings he had toward father. Father did not merely give him money. He gave him power. He even made proper arrangements for the woman Songhuai loved. By the time father was near death, Songhuai had already risen to the third rank. Mo Huaizhi had also become a great general. He came and went from the Chen residence as naturally as if he were returning to his own home. The two men competed silently with one another. Neither dared relax even at night, each terrified that one day the other would become his superior. Before his death, father gave Songhuai a ledger. Inside were the weaknesses of many officials. Along with that ledger, father handed over the network of relationships he had spent many years building throughout officialdom. He carefully instructed Songhuai. He told him which officials could be used, which could be befriended, and which absolutely had to be guarded against. Listening to those painstaking instructions, Songhuai's eyes reddened. Father exhaled his final breath. Songhuai wept as though his own biological father had died. He clung to father's body and cried out "Father" in anguish. He had not cried like that even when his biological father died. I did not cry either. I only thought that father's final performance had been astonishingly profound, so convincing it seemed to sink into the bones. He fooled everyone. Even I could no longer distinguish what had been real from what had been an act. That alone was enough to become my golden immunity token when dealing with Songhuai. That night, Mo Huaizhi kissed me between the brows and asked worriedly, are you very heartbroken? I said nothing. In truth, I felt nothing at all. To me, father had always been a stranger. When I was little, I feared him because he was master of the entire household. He could even sell my mother. How could I not have been afraid? Later, I hated him. I hated him for never asking about me, for not caring whether I lived or died. He raised me the way someone might keep a cat or dog, then left me to fend for myself. He never cared whether mother treated me well. In his mind, he had already given mother and me everything we were entitled to receive. Whatever happened between the two of us after that was our own affair. When I grew older, I once wanted to kill him. But after living with my stepmother and being taught by her own hand, I learned her habit of looking only at what was advantageous. A living father could bring me far more money, power and prestige than a dead one ever could. My feelings toward him had changed again and again over the years. Only now did I finally realize that father had never truly changed. I was the one who changed. Day by day, I became more deceitful, gradually growing just like him. By the time I was 30, my sons had passed their examinations one after another and become accomplished in their studies, while my daughter had already been promised in marriage. Songhuai and Mo Huaizhi finally settled which of them would stand higher. Songhuai became the leader of the respected civil officials and entered the Grand Secretariat as its chief minister. Then the emperor sent him as an envoy to a foreign state. He was captured and made a prisoner. After Songhuai took his own life, our court then had a reason to send troops. Mo Huaizhi led the army into battle and won a great victory. When Songhuai's body was returned, it came with an imperial decree posthumously granting him the title of duke. I naturally became a duchess as well. Songhuai left no final words for me. After all these years, there had long been nothing left for us to say. He had once told a subordinate, "Life is nothing more than a great dream. I no longer desire anything. To leave my name in history is the only wish still within my reach." The ending he reached was something the cowherd boy he had once been would never even have dared to imagine. And I had finally received full repayment for the first 14 years of my life, years in which I had given everything I had for his sake. Everyone had been treated fairly in the end. Not long after Songhuai died, Mo Huaizhi wanted to marry me. I did not want to kill him, so I refused. My life was already as good as it could possibly be. Was I insane? A paramour should know his place. If he wanted to climb into the position of lawful husband, there was only one road waiting for him: death. I would not mind adding his life to the ones already on my hands. "Do not force me," I told him coldly. He was deeply hurt. Susu, my good friend who had recently become a widow herself, asked, "Will he truly let the matter go?" I sneered. "If he refuses, what can he do?" My late husband was a loyal minister. With Songhuai as my golden immunity token, what can Mo Huaizhi possibly do to me? If he drives me into a corner, I will simply poison him and finish the matter once and for all. Just like when you poisoned that short-lived devil of a brother-in-law of mine, settling it once and for all. Susu burst out laughing. She lifted her skirt and ran toward the Marquis's residence. "Wait there!" I still have some poison left from when I killed Lu Zhang. I will bring it to you. It works extremely well. Once taken, it begins working within the time it takes an incense stick to burn. It kills on the spot. I shook my head helplessly and looked up at the moon in the sky. Dawn was approaching. The long night was almost over. As long as there was still life, everything would eventually get better.